Welcome back to Sleep Nova. Sit back, relax, and don't forget to comment where you're watching from down below. It's amazing seeing people all around the world supporting my small channel. Now, enjoy the show. A lone human body drifts in the silent darkness, high above the blue curve of Earth. Eyes wide, heart calm, they float effortlessly, suspended between the radiant planet below and the endless stars above. The only sound is their own breath, a gentle rhythm in the vacuum of space. Below, a fragile swirl of whites, blues, and browns, the Earth glows against the black cosmic sea. In this weightless moment, time itself seems to pause. There is only the rise and fall of breathing, the steady beating of a heart, and the profound sight of home hovering in the distance. In this quiet ballet of body and cosmos, a sense of both awe and belonging washes over them. They extend a hand, as if to touch the curved horizon of Earth far beneath. Cities sparkle faintly on the night side like scattered embers. Daylight paints clouds and oceans in brilliant hues. The atmosphere is a delicate halo, a thin shell of life clinging to a solitary world. From up here, there are no borders, no sounds of human hustle, just a silent, spinning sphere and the tiny figure gazing down, wondering. The human body, unbound from gravity, moves with slow grace, a gentle turn, a slow tumble, like an infant cradled in the womb of space. For as long as humans have walked the Earth, we have dreamed of this view. We have imagined ourselves among the stars, our stories reaching upward when our bodies could not. Ancient poets and storytellers looked up at the night sky and populated it with their hopes and gods. Perhaps this drifting soul remembers some of those old tales, of a Chinese goddess, Chang'e, carried to the moon by the elixir of immortality, of the winged Icarus who flew too close to the sun, of heavenly ladders and chariots carrying mortals skyward in mythic flights. In every culture, the sky was the realm of the divine and the impossible, and yet we were drawn to it, hearts full of longing. Now here, floating above Earth, myth becomes tangible truth. The stars no longer feel out of reach. The person floats as if in a dream, fulfilling an ancient yearning written into our very bones. In this moment, the boundary between dream and reality blurs. The body recalls stories of those who dared to imagine this weightlessness. Perhaps it remembers the science fiction tales devoured in youth, intrepid travelers in rocket ships, space stations spinning with artificial gravity, cities on Mars beneath pink skies. Those fictions were the seeds of our reality. They carried the torch of the old myths, keeping the spark alive through centuries until technology could catch up. The lone figure in orbit closes their eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun on their face, unfiltered by any atmosphere. They think of those who imagined this moment long ago. A writer in ancient Greece who told of a ship whisked to the moon by a waterspout, a Renaissance astronomer who wrote of demons carrying voyages into the heavens, a 19th century novelist who fired a space capsule from a giant cannon. All those dreams, absurd and beautiful, have led to this quiet instant above the Earth. Slowly, they open their eyes again. Tears would float free in this microgravity, but there is only wonder, no sadness. Below, Earth turns, and with it turn the ages of human history that led us here. How many generations looked up at the moon and stars with longing? How many nights on the plains or in ancient cities did our ancestors whisper stories about living in the sky? It was a collective dream shared across cultures and time, a dream that one day, somehow, we might slip the surly bonds of Earth and make our home among those lights in the night. And now the dreamer is awake in the heavens. The human body in space is real, fragile, miraculous. As they take it all in, the silent symphony of Earth and stars, a thought arises, gentle but persistent. Can we live in outer space? Floating above the only home we've ever known, The question feels both urgent and natural. The body drifts on, turning slowly end over end, and the Earthrise in their visor reflects the dawn of a new idea. Perhaps our home is not just that distant blue sphere, but also the space around it, the moon, the planets, and even the stars beyond. Perhaps this is the first step of a long journey outward. In the depths of those eyes staring into the cosmic abyss, there is courage and curiosity. The same traits that drove explorers across oceans now carry us beyond our atmosphere. The human in orbit gently pivots to look away from Earth, out into the star-speckled darkness. There are no familiar landmarks there, only infinity. It is beautiful and terrifying all at once. The Milky Way spills its pale light, and one cannot help feeling both tiny and grand. Tiny as a speck in an unfathomable expanse, yet grand as a bearer of consciousness, a piece of the universe that can behold itself. They stretch out their arms as if to embrace the cosmos. In the emptiness, one feels an unexpected fullness, a connection to all of humanity, to those on Earth below, and to those who will someday venture further. Floating here is not an escape, but a homecoming of a different sort, a return to the stars that forged the atoms in our bodies. We are children of the universe, and now, finally, we have begun to come home. The radio crackles with a distant voice. Mission control, a reminder of the links that still tether this Voyager to Earth. The spell of absolute solitude gently breaks, but the sense of reverie remains. As the astronaut responds and prepares to return to the space station nearby, their heart lingers on that profound question. Can we live in outer space? Not just visit for moments like this, but truly live, work, love, and build a new world out here. In the serene silence, with Earthlight glinting off their visor, they know the answer lies ahead, in both dream and effort. Humanity's story has always been one of pushing frontiers, of making the imagined real. The body takes one last, slow turn, Earth filling the view once more. The journey back to the station is brief, a small thruster firing to guide them home. But the mind travels far beyond, envisioning what life among the stars might one day mean. With a gentle grasp, the astronaut re-enters the airlock of the orbiting habitat. One small step in microgravity, one giant leap carried in the heart. As the hatch closes and pressurizes with a hiss, they hold on to that feeling of floating freely above the world. It is the feeling of a dream becoming reality, of ancient myth finding new form, of humanity extending its reach. It is the beginning of a story of whether we can leave our cradle and learn to live in the cosmos. Inside the space station, the astronaut removes their helmet. Sweat floats as tiny droplets before being caught by a cloth. They tether themselves to a wall, though here it is just another surface, to keep from drifting. As they pause, they recall how impossibly distant such a moment would have seemed to our ancestors. Yet this station, this life in orbit, did not appear overnight. It was built on generations of dreaming and decades of trial and error. The notion of living away from Earth has always been with us, first as myth and fantasy, and then as concrete science and engineering. Centuries ago, long before the first rocket pierced the sky, people were already envisioning voyages beyond Earth. In ancient China, storytellers recounted the legend of a civil servant, Wan Hu, who fastened rockets to a chair in a bid to reach the stars, a mythic tale of ambition that hints at our age-old desire to escape gravity. The Greeks told of the philosopher Lucian's imaginary trip to the moon, carried by a great whirlwind, discovering odd lunar societies. A playful fantasy, but one that treated the moon as a place one could truly visit and even live. In the 17th century, Johannes Kepler wrote a story, Somnium, about a journey to the moon assisted by supernatural forces, in which he speculated earnestly about moon-dwelling creatures and the challenges of surviving in lunar conditions like cold and vacuum. Each tale, from the whimsical to the scientific, added a brushstroke to a growing portrait of life beyond Earth. The dream only intensified as knowledge grew. By the late 19th century, writers like Jules Verne took these dreams and grounded them in calculation and steel. Verne's novel, From the Earth to the Moon, imagined a colossal cannon shooting a crew in a bullet-shaped capsule into space. It was fanciful in execution, yet remarkably prescient in details. He calculated trajectories and launch sites, inspiring real engineers. Around the same time, H.G. Wells mused about anti-gravity metal in The First Men in the Moon, conjuring an underground lunar civilization. These early science fiction visions served as both entertainment and blueprint. They whispered that living in space was not just myth, it could perhaps one day be real. As the astronaut secures their helmet to the wall, they recall another figure who straddled the line between fiction and reality. A Russian schoolteacher named Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. In the late 1800s, Tsiolkovsky, inspired by Werner's stories and the gleam of the stars above, began to work out the mathematics of spaceflight. He dreamed of weightless habitats orbiting Earth, where people would float in cylindrical shells and grow plants in greenhouses to survive. Earth, he wrote, is the cradle of humanity, but one cannot remain in the cradle forever. That rallying cry from a quiet man in a provincial town became a mantra for the new century. Across the ocean, an American named Robert Goddard and a Transylvanian-born Hermann Oberth also believed passionately that humanity could break free of Earth. They built small rockets, tested strange fuels, and scribbled equations late into the night, often ridiculed for their moon-mad ideas. But they persevered. The space station vibrates ever so slightly as a guidance thruster fires to adjust its orbit. The astronaut smiles, thinking how that gentle push traces its intellectual lineage back to those early rocket pioneers. By the mid-20th century, rocketry had leapt from theory to practice, though initially for war. The roar of the V-2 rockets over Europe during World War II was a sinister harbinger, but in the rubble of that conflict, the seeds of human spaceflight were found. Engineers who once built weapons turned their eyes upward, repurposing technology for exploration. In a single generation, humanity vaulted from dreaming about spaceflight to actually riding fire into the heavens. It happened on a spring day in 1961. A Russian named Yuri Gagarin squeezed into a tiny spherical capsule atop a towering rocket. With a thunderous launch, he became the first human to leave the Earth's embrace, orbiting the planet in 108 minutes. As he gazed down on the Earth, the first of us to see our world from above, Gagarin reportedly marveled at the beauty of it, at the thinness of the atmosphere. When he safely returned, the world erupted in celebration and astonishment. The impossible had become possible. The cradle's grip was loosened, if only for a single orbit. After Gagarin's leap came a cascade of milestones. Americans sent John Glenn orbiting soon after, and just 8 years later, in 1969, Neil Armstrong's boot pressed into the grey dust of the moon. For a moment, it seemed all of humanity stood on that desolate lunar sea with him, hearts pounding as he uttered about one small step and a giant leap. In that grainy broadcast, the ancient dream of living in space found its first foothold on another world, if only briefly. The Apollo astronauts spent mere hours or days on the moon, camping in fragile landers. Yet, as they looked up at the marble of Earth hanging in the black sky, they carried back a message: that we could physically exist on another world, albeit for a short time, and that our own planet was both beautiful and heartbreakingly isolated. Back on Earth, those brief extraterrestrial adventures ignited imaginations anew. In the 1970s, even as the moon missions ended, thinkers like Gerard O'Neill asked, why not build our own colonies in space? Why only visit moons and planets when we could create habitats free floating in the void, crafted by human hands to be like Earth? Concepts for gigantic rotating cylinders in space, miles long and miles in diameter, sprang from serious studies at universities and space agencies. These cylindrical colonies, O'Neill cylinders, as they came to be known, would spin to provide artificial gravity on their inner surface. Inside, they envisioned entire landscapes, fields of green, towns along a curved horizon, perhaps even artificial lakes and clouds, all enclosed by metal and glass and shielded from deadly cosmic radiation. Artists painted these dreams in vibrant detail, children flying kites in alien sky blue light, families picnicking in orbit with the Earth itself, a distant jewel in the sky. These were no mere fantasies. They were backed by thick engineering reports, calculations of how many tons of metal and water would be needed, how to harvest materials from the moon or asteroids to build them. For a moment in human discourse, living in space was not just a far future possibility. It felt on the cusp of tangible planning. But reality, as always, proceeded in smaller steps. The astronaut aboard our modern station knows this intimately. Before humanity could build floating cities, we had to learn how to survive for days, then weeks, then months beyond Earth. The 1970s brought the first true space habitats, though humble. The Soviet Union's Salyut stations and America's Skylab were early attempts, a few modules linked together, cramped and Spartan inside. Cosmonauts and astronauts lived in these tin can homes for a few months at most, learning how to sleep in weightlessness, how to eat, how to stay sane in a very finite, up-downless world. Skylab, with its roomy workshop, even allowed 3 men to spend about 3 months in orbit, conducting experiments and gazing back at Earth through a golden window. They famously snuck in time to simply watch the Earth go by, and once, feeling overwhelmed by ground control's busy schedule, they took an impromptu day off, a gentle rebellion reminding everyone that humans, not robots, lived up there with human limits and needs. Lessons accumulated. In the 1980s and 90s, Soviet cosmonauts aboard the space station Mir pushed human endurance further. They stayed not just months, but over a year in space, showing that our bodies and minds, while strained, could adapt to long durations away from Earth. Mir was a true long-term home off Earth's surface, rickety at times, cluttered with equipment and the personal touches of its crew, photos of family taped to walls, a guitar floating in a corner, occasional motes of bread or dust caught by sunlight in the cabin air. It was in those years that living in space transformed from an abstract question into a day-to-day reality for a select few. People learned to function in microgravity not as an expedition, but as a lifestyle, albeit a challenging one. Men and women orbited Earth for hundreds of days, experiencing how solitude and microgravity affect hearts, bones, and minds. They found ways to cope and flourish, exercising their muscles with rubber bungees and treadmills, sharing jokes and routines to keep morale high. All these moments, the triumphs of Gagarin and Armstrong, the slow, steady work aboard Salyut, Skylab, and Mir, were stepping stones. They answered some basic questions and raised new ones. We learned that humans could eat, sleep, and work in microgravity. But what about truly living, starting families, building societies? That remained the stuff of speculation, even as the practical groundwork was laid. The International Space Station, where our astronaut now floats, is the heir to those early stations. It is a gleaming lattice of modules, as long as a football field, assembled piece by many nations. Since the year 2000, there has not been a single day when humans were not living in orbit. Generations have now been born who have never known a time when the glow of an inhabited spacecraft couldn't be seen moving across the night sky. So, as the astronaut secures their gear and moves through the station's corridor, they are walking, or rather drifting, through the halls of what was once pure fantasy. Here, living in space is ordinary in its basics. There are bunks for sleeping, a galley for preparing meals, laboratories full of humming machines. And yet, it is extraordinary too. Just outside the thin walls lies vacuum and infinity. Every inch of this habitat is a triumph of human ingenuity and cooperation. Water is recycled from breath and sweat. Oxygen is generated from water by electrolysis, and a carefully maintained balance of air keeps them alive. The station is a bubble of Earth's environment transplanted into space, a tiny, fragile bubble that requires constant vigilance. It took thousands of people on Earth to design, build, and maintain this lifeboat in the void. In floating here, among humming computers and the soft whir of air filters, the astronaut feels the presence of all that history. The myths, the stories, the equations scribbled on paper, the fervent work of engineers, the bravery of early spacefarers. This place, this moment, is built atop all of that. And still, it is only the prologue to a much grander saga that is yet to come. For the question remains, can we truly live in outer space? We have learned how to survive for a while. We have visited the moon and inhabited low Earth orbit continuously, but survival is not the same as living fully. To live in outer space means to make it our home, not just a campsite. It means confronting challenges our ancestors never faced and solving problems our legends never imagined. The astronaut gently propels themselves toward the observation cupola, a domed window on the space station that offers a panoramic view of Earth and the cosmos. As they peer out at the blue planet below, now passing over a sunlit ocean, they consider how far we've come and how far we have yet to go. The station's orbit traces a path through day and night, and each sunrise illuminates the curved horizon with a golden glow. With each dawn, a new chapter in the dream of space living begins, built on the foundation of all the history that got us here. We are on the threshold. In that astronaut's reflection is the face of humanity, filled with determination and curiosity. The ancient dreams have led us to the present reality. Now the present reality asks us to dream again, this time with hard-earned wisdom guiding fancy. The journey to truly live in space is underway, and it carries all of our past with it, mythic heroes and real ones, propelling us toward the future. Humanity did not leap into the cosmos without introspection. Back in the early 21st century, as it became clear that technology might soon allow migrations beyond Earth, we faced pivotal questions. Who gets to go? On what terms? In the beginning, spaceflight was the domain of a few highly trained astronauts, chosen by governments through rigorous criteria focusing on skills, fitness, and mission needs. They were envoys of all humankind, but they were also elite, representing nations and carrying the prestige of their homelands into orbit. As the dream of settling space moved from fiction toward reality, it sparked both excitement and anxiety in societies worldwide. Some feared a future where only the rich or powerful could escape to space habitats, leaving the less fortunate behind on a troubled Earth. Science fiction had explored those dystopias in cautionary tales of orbiting gated communities, and society took those warnings to heart. It was crucial to ensure that space did not become just another arena of inequality. Early efforts to democratize space access began with symbolic gestures. An international teacher in space, artists sent to the space station to share the experience through creativity, a contest sending a teenager's science experiment to orbit. When private citizens, space tourists, started visiting the International Space Station, it opened a new chapter. They were wealthy adventurers, yes, but their very presence signaled that space was slowly opening beyond career astronauts. Over time, companies emerged promising to take people to orbit or the moon if they could afford a ticket, much as commercial airlines had done for air travel. Prices were astronomical at first, but tended downward. A new question arose. Should there be subsidies or lotteries to ensure not only millionaires could go? Some governments indeed began sponsoring seats for teachers, poets, or everyman citizen astronauts, emphasizing that space is for everyone. When plans for the first Mars colony were announced, the application process was broadcast globally. Thousands of hopefuls from every country sent in videos and essays, volunteering for what might be a one-way trip, at least for many years. Selection committees labored to balance skills. Farmers, engineers, Doctors, technicians, psychologists, with human elements. Could these people get along in a tin can on a hostile planet? Did they represent the diversity of Earth's peoples? The world watched and debated. Reality TV shows even cropped up dramatizing the selection, which some criticized as trivializing a solemn endeavor. But it showed that humanity at large was invested. Going to Mars was not just a governmental project, it was a human project. Ethicists weighed in. How do we obtain informed consent for a mission with such uncertainty and risk? Is it right to let people effectively exile themselves to a barren world? Others argued it was akin to the great seafaring explorations or pioneer migrations of history. Bold and dangerous, yes, but driven by our intrinsic push to explore and settle. The difference? Those historical colonizations often displaced or harmed others, native peoples, exploited labor. On Mars or the Moon, there were no indigenous people, only an environment and perhaps microbial life to consider. So our moral focus shifted to preserving those environments scientifically and not contaminating them recklessly. Robotic probes had tried to ensure Mars was mostly sterile before humans arrived, but people inevitably carry Earth microbes on their skin and clothes. Thus, protocols were in place. Mars habitats would be isolated and waste sterilized. The search for Martian life would continue, so that if we found even a hint of native biology, we could adapt our plans to avoid harming it. Some advocated that certain zones of Mars be designated off-limits, planetary parks for science only. We would, in effect, impose a principle of do no harm as much as possible, extending respect even to a potentially lifeless but scientifically precious world. Within human society, there was an understanding that those who go to space carry the responsibility of all humans. Early Mars settlers took oath-like pledges reminiscent of explorers' vows. They knew their actions could set precedents. If they claimed territory or behaved recklessly, it could sow conflict. Thus, international treaties were reaffirmed and extended. No nation can own celestial bodies. Mars and beyond belong to all humankind. Any colony would ideally operate under a framework that included many nations or a new collective governance. But how to govern a colony millions of kilometers away? Some on Earth fearfully imagined a Mars that one day might declare independence and spark Mars versus Earth tensions. Others were optimistic, picturing inclusive political structures, a kind of United Nations of space, where Earth nations and off-world colonies sat together. In any case, these concerns made one thing clear. Living in space isn't just engineering, it's society building. We would need new laws and norms. If a child was born on Mars, what citizenship would they have? Earthling or Martian? Early on, it was decided they'd hold the citizenship of their parents' home nation, or perhaps a special Earth passport, until Martian self-governance developed. And what about justice in space? An international space treaty was expanded to cover crimes or disputes, a framework where Earth-based courts might have jurisdiction until colonies set up their own legal systems consistent with human rights. Who gets to shape all this? By necessity, those who went first shaped much of it. Their successes or failures would influence public opinion and policy. Early Mars crews and space habitat residents made a point of broad transparency, broadcasting their daily lives, the joys and struggles, back to Earth. This open diary of colonization helped Earth's public feel invested and included, not left behind. It wasn't us and them, but rather we are doing this together, step by step. When a crew member on Mars expressed homesickness looking at Earth in their sky, or two settlers in a moon base had a personal conflict they needed to resolve, those stories, shared carefully, humanized them. People on Earth realized these pioneers were not superheroes or distant gods. They were people, fallible, relatable, courageous people, just in a very novel situation. The ethics of selection gradually gave way to the ethics of integration. As people began living off Earth for longer, how would they remain part of humanity's shared culture? The lines of communication, education, and art became crucial. Earth institutions began to include off-world history in curricula as soon as colonies formed. A child on Earth might learn about the first Martian colony the way they learned about ancient Rome, taking pride in it as part of human heritage. Meanwhile, children on Mars or the Moon studied Earth's cultures and languages deeply, knowing that is where humanity grew from. There was a deliberate effort to prevent an us versus them mentality from forming. Still, differences emerged with time and new questions. If a Mars-born person found Earth's gravity too heavy to live comfortably, would they be considered disabled on Earth or simply adapted to Mars? If an orbital habitat chose a novel form of government, say, a direct digital democracy in their small community, would Earth nations recognize it? As human society diversified into different gravities and environments, tolerance and pluralism had to expand as well. We had to accept that human could encompass someone who's never felt 1G, or whose calendar was 24.6 hours long, or whose night sky lacked a moon but featured the rings of Saturn. In those early shaping years, deciding who got to live in outer space and under what rules was guided by something profound, a sense that in space, we must represent the best of us. Perhaps that was optimistic, but it was a self-fulfilling aspiration. The people who chose to leave Earth largely did so out of idealism and scientific passion. They carried that idealism with them. They named their new habitats things like Harmony or Shackleton, after explorers, or gave them names from many languages to reflect unity. They drafted charters echoing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, ensuring that regardless of the strange new circumstances, fundamental human dignity was upheld. Mistakes happened. No society, new or old, is perfect. But a conscious effort was made not to repeat historical injustices in this fresh arena. For example, when corporations attempted to monopolize asteroid mining zones or patent essential space resources, international bodies and public outcry pushed back, crafting agreements, like updated outer space treaties, to treat these resources as the common heritage of mankind. Space belongs to all humanity was not just a slogan, it was written into policy. There was no space police to enforce these ideals beyond the reach of Earth, but collective pressure and the moral authority of the international community generally held sway. After all, early space settlements still needed Earth's support, goodwill, and markets. Going rogue was not in their interest. Thus, through fits and starts, humanity navigated the ethical landscape of becoming multiplanetary. The story of who lived in outer space became, ultimately, a story of all of us. In time, millions might live off-world, but in those first few decades it was dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Each one of them was aware they were a representative. When the first baby was born on the Moon, the parents allowed a short live transmission of the child's first cry. People around the globe cheered and wept in unison. It was as if a member of every family had been born out there. When the first Martian settlement held a vote to elect a local council, Earth media broadcast it as a global event, democracy's first off-world election. Such moments were celebrated not as alien, but as extensions of human civilization. By the time orbital habitats and Mars cities were truly self-sustaining, the question, who gets to live in outer space, had evolved. It was no longer just about selection or privilege. It became about preparation and opportunity. Schools worldwide began to tell children that moving to space or another planet was a viable option in their future, something to aspire to, just like any career. What do you want to be when you grow up? Might now be answered by a child in Nairobi or New York with a Mars agronomist or an orbital architect. To make that real, scholarships and training programs emerged so that not only the wealthiest nations' citizens could go to space. Space agencies formed international astronaut corps for planetary missions, pulling talent from a broad pool. If space was to be humanity's new frontier, then humanity as a whole would have a stake in it. In parallel, those who ventured outward never forgot their roots. Most spacefarers developed an even stronger environmental ethic for Earth after seeing it from afar. Many who returned from assignments on Mars or the Moon became powerful advocates for protecting Earth's ecosystems, armed with tech they'd developed for closed-loop survival in space, efficient recyclers, indoor farming techniques that could help communities on Earth live more sustainably. Far from escaping Earth's problems, they often returned with fresh perspective to help solve them. Thus, the relationship became symbiotic. Earth nurtured space settlements with people, culture, and supplies. Space, in turn, gave Earth innovations, perspective, and hope. It wasn't always smooth. There were episodes of public doubt, moments of tragedy, an accident in space that claimed lives, prompting reflection on risk and purpose, and periodic criticisms that money spent on Mars could be better spent on earthly hunger or disease. But the momentum, once started, was hard to stop. The dream was too potent, the potential too great. In one telling episode, a private consortium announced plans to establish a luxury space resort only for the ultra-wealthy, essentially a gilded orbital refuge. The backlash was swift and fierce. Media and citizens alike condemned it as against the spirit of humanity's shared journey. The consortium rebranded the project, adding scientific facilities and opening some spots for researchers and students, making it not just a pleasure dome, but a part of the collective effort. The lesson: humanity would not embrace a future in which space was a lifeboat for the few or a playground of privilege. If we go to space to thrive, we go as a human family, messy, diverse, striving to be just. By the time the first multi-family habitats in orbit and the first Martian towns were thriving, the ethics of selection had transformed into something akin to immigration on Earth. There were requirements and processes, but the guiding principle was that anyone could aspire to go if they prepared and contributed. Perhaps a day will come when leaving Earth is as routine as moving to another country, motivated by jobs, adventure, or the simple desire for a different sky. If that day arrives, we will remember the ethos established when the Enterprise was fragile, that we are caretakers of each other, whether Earthborn or spaceborn, and that we owe each other empathy across the void. Those first brave souls in off-world colonies set the tone, one of cooperation, equality, and awe. They wrote in their journals about feeling like tenants of the solar system, all of us, and hoping their work would benefit everyone, not just themselves. One early Mars settler, standing under the pale pink Martian sky, said during an interview, "Mars is not a refuge or a fortress for a few. It's a new chapter for civilization. We're here to open the door for everyone else, whenever they're ready." It was a sentiment that resonated widely on Earth and became a guiding star in space policy. Now, looking back on those times from our vantage in the future, we see it wasn't perfect, but somehow we avoided the worst pitfalls. The question of who gets to live in outer space gradually shifted from the hands of a few gatekeepers to a more organic flow of migration. And as more people went, the line between us on Earth and them in space blurred. They stepped into the void, armed not only with technology, but with a mandate to uphold humanity's shared values in each new habitat. And so, as the first crews settled into their permanent spaceborne homes, they carried with them the hopes and principles of the whole Earth. We became one community spread across many places. With that unity in diversity, we carried forward into the following decades, ready to face the practical and philosophical challenges of actually building lives beyond our home world. Morning on the space station does not arrive with the sun. Sunrise and sunset happen every 45 minutes here, but by the schedule set in Houston and Moscow. The astronaut glances at their wristwatch. It's morning by agreement, though outside the window the Earth below is bathed in midday light. They float over to a small compartment, about the size of a telephone booth, which serves as their sleeping quarters. Inside, a sleeping bag is pinned to the wall. Last night, they drifted into slumber, zipped inside that bag, kept from free-floating by straps. In microgravity, there's no tossing and turning in bed. Every surface can be a bed if you let it. Some nights they simply tethered themselves and closed their eyes, letting their arms float upward in the simian hunch posture that bodies naturally take without gravity, almost like a fetus curled in amniotic fluid. It's oddly comfortable, sleeping as if back in the womb of weightlessness. Emerging from the sleeping bag, the astronaut performs a familiar dance with morning hygiene. There is no running water. A blob of water squeezed from a pouch hovers in the air until caught on a washcloth. They rub it over their face and scalp. No rinse shampoo helps keep their short-cropped hair clean. An electric razor floats at hand, but shaving must be done carefully near an air vent that can suck in the clippings, lest tiny hairs wander into instruments or lungs. There's no shower to stand under. One couldn't even stand, and water would spray in every direction. Instead, cleanliness is maintained through sponge baths with wet towels. It's a reminder that even the simplest Earth routines must be reinvented out here. Dressed in a fresh shirt and pants, clothes are worn a few days, then packed away as trash to be incinerated on re-entry. Since washing machines are a luxury for another time, the astronaut makes their way to the galley for breakfast. Breakfast might be scrambled eggs, in powdered form, revived with a squirt of water, or perhaps a pouch of yogurt and dried fruit. Food in space is a careful affair. Every morsel must be contained. In front of them, they velcro their meal packet to the table so it doesn't drift. Using a small utensil, which sticks magnetically to the tray between bites, they savor the food. It's not gourmet, but the engineers have come a long way from the paste in tubes that early cosmonauts endured. There are dozens of menu items now: thermostabilized stews, freeze-dried fruits, even occasional treats like a radiated smoked turkey or a brownie for dessert. Still, something is different. Microgravity has caused fluid to shift upward in their body, subtly congesting their sinuses as if with a mild cold. With a stuffy head, taste is blunted. Many astronauts crave hot sauce or strong spices to lend zing to these meals. A beloved item on the station is a bottle of pepper sauce. A few drops, carefully applied and stirred so they don't float off as burning droplets, can make rehydrated eggs taste almost like home. As they eat, they gaze out a nearby viewport at Earth. Drifting over the Middle East now, golden deserts and a ribbon of the Nile, this view never ceases to captivate. This daily communion with Earth below is more than recreation. For many spacefarers, it's a mental lifeline. They might spot their country, even their hometown, in a single sweep of the eye. It brings perspective and comfort, a reminder that though they live in the sky, they remain connected to humanity on the ground. Breakfast done, the astronaut cleans up, stowing wrappers and pouches for disposal. Now the workday begins. On the schedule, maintaining the life support systems and conducting several science experiments. But before any heavy work, there's a crucial daily task: exercise. In orbit, without gravity's pull, the human body begins to change in subtle and not so subtle ways. Our bones and muscles evolve to work constantly against weight. Take that away, and they start to weaken at an alarming rate. Already, after some weeks in space, our astronaut has experienced it. Legs thinning a bit, muscles not used for posture starting to shrink. Without intervention, an astronaut can lose as much as 1% of their bone density per month, a rate of loss that would be the envy of osteoporosis on Earth, and their muscles, especially in the legs and back, can atrophy just as quickly. So each day, they dedicate about 2 hours to vigorous exercise. The astronaut moves to a corner of the station where a strange-looking treadmill is mounted on the wall, though in microgravity, wall and floor mean little. They buckle into a harness that straps them to the treadmill with elastic bands. Otherwise, they would float away with each step. Once secured, they begin to run. It feels at first like running with a heavy backpack, necessary to simulate the feeling of weight on their feet. Around them, Equipment rattles softly with each footfall on the moving belt, a drumbeat in the quiet station. Despite the inconvenience, the astronaut welcomes the exertion. Their heart pumps faster, their muscles strain and sweat, and for a moment, they feel almost normal, almost back on Earth jogging in a park. Yet a drop of sweat breaks free from their brow and floats before their eyes, a glittering reminder that this is not Earth. They catch it with a towel and continue. After cardiovascular exercise, they switch to the resistance machine, a marvel of engineering called ARED, Advanced Resistive Exercise Device. It mimics weightlifting through vacuum cylinders that provide adjustable resistance. Here, they lift weights to keep upper body and core muscles strong. They do squats and deadlifts of a sort, the device pulling against them as they push. The strain on muscles feels satisfying. This routine will, with luck, ensure that when they return to Earth's gravity one day, they won't collapse under their own weight. Without these measures, returning astronauts could struggle to walk or stand as their reconditioned bodies re-encounter gravity. Even with diligent workouts, many astronauts still need help standing when they first land. Muscles tremble and blood pressure can drop, causing dizziness until their cardiovascular system readapts. Exercise also helps in other ways. It gets the blood flowing, mitigating the fluid shifts that cause puffy faces and skinny bird legs. In microgravity, without gravity drawing fluids down, blood and water in the body move upward. Faces swell slightly. Sometimes, astronauts look like they have a constant mild sinus congestion, while their legs, not bearing weight, lose fluid and slim down. They joke about the puffy head, bird legs syndrome. But behind the joke is a real concern. That upward fluid shift can increase pressure inside the skull and on the back of the eyes. Some astronauts, especially on long missions, have experienced changes in their vision, flattened eyeballs and swollen optic nerves, a condition being studied closely. Doctors call it spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome, and it's one of many puzzles we must solve for longer space living. Our astronaut diligently performs extra eye exams when asked, pressing their face against a device that uses ultrasound to image their retinas. They know that the very shape of their eyes might be altered by this weightless life. With exercise done, they towel off and float to the next task. A science experiment awaits, growing little plants in a microgravity greenhouse. They open a small chamber where delicate sprouts of lettuce are thriving under pink LED lights. Tended carefully, these greens will be part of the crew's diet in a few weeks. A welcome crunch of fresh salad amid packaged foods. More importantly, they are a test of sustaining life off Earth. The astronaut injects water into the roots and checks sensors. The sight of the tiny leaves brings a smile. Even a bit of green, a bit of life from soil, profoundly lifts the sterile mechanical atmosphere of the station. It reminds them of a garden on Earth, and for a moment, the station feels more homely. This quiet interlude with the plants is broken by an alarm, just a scheduled reminder for a medical check. It's time to collect a blood sample for a study on how the immune system behaves in space. Microgravity affects nearly every bodily system. The immune system can get a bit confused. Some astronauts find latent viruses like shingles reactivating under the stress and altered physiology of spaceflight. Blood and saliva samples help scientists track these changes. With practiced efficiency, the astronaut draws a vial of their own blood, labels it, and stores it in a freezer that will keep it for return to Earth analysis. They make a log entry on a computer describing how they feel today. Mood and cognition are also under the microscope. Spacefarers often report a certain euphoria at first, the so-called overview effect of seeing Earth as one unified entity can fill one with unexpected peace and planetary love. But beyond that, as days turn to weeks, they experience the full spectrum of human emotion. There are days of excitement, days of monotony, moments of irritation or longing for home, bursts of camaraderie and laughter with crewmates, and quiet periods of introspection staring out the window. They might joke over dinner and music one night, and the next quietly miss the feeling of wind and rain on their face. In the close quarters of the station, about the internal volume of a large house, but much of that filled with equipment, privacy is scarce. Each crew member has their little sleeping nook, but otherwise they are almost always within earshot of each other. Minor conflicts can arise. A mislaid tool or a forgotten checklist can spark annoyance that must be carefully managed. They are professionals, trained to cooperate, but they are human too. On Earth, one could walk away after an argument. Here, there's nowhere else to go. So communication and patience become their own vital life support systems. Our astronaut scribbles a candid thought in a private journal. Dreamed of the forest behind my childhood home last night. Could smell the pines. Woke up floating. These journals are encouraged by psychologists. They give crew members a safe outlet and provide researchers insight after the mission into their mental states over time. It's all part of learning how isolation and confinement affect humans when it's not just a week-long mission, but months and eventually years. The workday continues. Maintenance is constant. Filters need cleaning. Devices must be recalibrated. The station is like a small town with a never-ending to-do list. Air and water systems to check, communications gear to update, scientific apparatus to tend. In between tasks, the astronaut steals glances out the window. The station passes over the Pacific now. A broad swath of ocean shimmers under the sun. In the distance, a curl of a tropical cyclone draws their eye. A massive weather system silently swirling. They snap a photo. Capturing Earth's wonders is a favorite pastime and also an important science activity. Those photos help track environmental changes, and, for the astronaut, taking them is a form of artistic expression and connection to home. By late afternoon, the crew reconvenes for a planning meeting with mission control. A disembodied voice from home, running through tomorrow's agenda and receiving updates about today's. Though separated by 400 kilometers of void, the astronauts and ground teams form a single community. They even share jokes over the loop. Mission controllers know the value of morale. One controller reads up a bit of news from Earth. A major sports finals result. A popular song topping the charts. A holiday message from a school. These little things mean the world to those off the world. It is a reminder that life on Earth flows on, and they are still part of it in spirit. Evening comes. Again, only by the clock. Since out the window, one might see the sun dipping toward a horizon and then rising again in a span of an hour and a half. The crew gathers for dinner. They drift around a makeshift table, securing their food packets with Velcro. Tonight, it's something resembling stew and rice, with peach cobbler for dessert, a special treat sent up in a cargo ship. They clink their plastic water pouches in a toast. To another successful day in space, someone quips. Laughter fills the module, echoes soft against the metallic walls. This simple camaraderie is as vital as oxygen. They share stories. Perhaps an old astronaut recounts a tale of Mir or the space shuttle days. A younger crewmate might talk about their children back home, drawing a picture of Mummy floating in space. After dinner, they indulge in a rare pleasure: music. One crew member brings out a guitar that has been aboard the station for years, strumming it in the air. The acoustics in the cramped node are surprisingly good. Our astronaut closes their eyes and listens as a familiar melody, perhaps a rendition of Space Oddity or a favorite classical piece, reverberates through the station. In microgravity, the notes hang and gently fade without the weight of gravity to dampen the instrument. It's a gentle concert for 6 souls drifting above the Earth. Some quietly hum or sing along. Others tap their feet against a handrail in time, or they would if feet stayed on the floor. For a moment, they could be in a living room on Earth, friends enjoying music after a day's work. But the view, the view from the cupola, betrays their extraordinary locale. The Earth at night, with city lights twinkling like constellations of their own, sweeps past under a veil of atmospheric glow. Stars beyond shine cold and steady, with no twinkle here without air, a bed of diamonds on black velvet. As the music winds down, each person drifts to their own evening ritual. One might call their family via an IP phone link, speaking to a spouse or child, the signal bouncing through satellites to bridge Earth and sky. The time delay is negligible at this low orbit, making the conversation feel almost normal, except for the odd remark like, "I saw a beautiful sunrise an hour ago," while family replies, "But it's still afternoon here." Another astronaut might watch a movie on a laptop, floating in their sleeping quarters, a bit of escapism that momentarily transports them to a gravity-bound world through fiction. Our astronaut decides to write an email or two, one to an old friend, describing the thrill of seeing lightning storms from above, another to mission planners, with a suggestion about improving the plant watering system. They know that to truly live in space one day, the little things will matter. The ergonomics of a zero-G watering can, the recipe for a crumb-free bread that doesn't make a mess. Astronauts prefer tortillas for this reason. Life out here is a mosaic of such details, each addressed through trial and experience. Finally, it's time for bed. They retreat to the sleeping nook, where a small photograph of their family is velcroed to the wall next to a plush toy floating as a tiny guardian. As they zip into the sleeping bag, they feel the day's experiences gently replaying in mind, the effort of exercise, the wonder of the Earth's panorama, the quiet pride in another day off Earth. They know their calcium supplements and workouts will help keep their bones strong, that the filtered air they breathe is keeping them alive, that countless systems hum in the background to simulate an Earth-like bubble. It's a delicate equilibrium. Earlier, they had to replace a CO2 scrubber canister because carbon dioxide was creeping up. Removing CO2 is literally a matter of life or death in an enclosed habitat. Such tasks become routine here, as crucial as refilling a car's gas tank on Earth. In their mind, they ponder the facts of their own body. Their heart has gotten a bit lazy in microgravity, not pumping blood uphill as it once did. It may have shrunk slightly in muscle mass over the mission. Their bones in the lower body are shedding calcium, some of which ends up in their urine, hence the risk of kidney stones, mitigated by staying hydrated and taking potassium citrate. They recall being part of an experiment where ultrasound tracked how the spine's vertebrae separate slightly in microgravity, making them a few centimeters taller temporarily, but often giving them backaches from stretched ligaments. These are all pieces of the new normal for humans in space. None of it has been insurmountable so far, but as we contemplate living years, perhaps lifetimes, off Earth, these issues loom large. We would need artificial gravity or other innovations if humans are to live and raise children beyond Earth for generations. Our bodies, as they are now, are tuned for Earth's pull. With a chuckle, the astronaut remembers a line from training. In space, even your tears won't fall. Crying in microgravity leads to teardrops clinging to the eyes in stinging globules until wiped away. Anger, joy, sorrow, all take on new dimension when expressed in an alien environment. They haven't cried up here yet, though some nights they have felt a deep longing when thinking of loved ones. But those tears, if they came, would remind them that living out here means redefining even the most human of acts. They dim the lights of their compartment. Outside, another orbital night has begun. The station moves into Earth's shadow, and the cabin windows show an incredible starscape with no sunlight to outshine it. From the sleeping compartment, our astronaut can't see that view, but they know it's there. They whisper softly to themselves a good night to Earth, and a good night to the universe beyond the thin walls. Here, in this metal cocoon, a human being lives, not as a visitor in space, but as a resident, however temporary. It's a life filled with both magic and mundane, as any life is. Sunrise over the ocean one moment, cleaning an air filter the next. As they drift to sleep, their body relaxes into weightlessness, spine lengthened, arms floating free. In the coming days, new challenges will arise. Perhaps a minor equipment failure to fix, or an experiment yielding surprising data about how microbes behave in microgravity. But for now, in this moment of repose, the astronaut embodies proof that humans can indeed live, eat, sleep, work, and find meaning beyond the Earth. The station is a small world unto itself, a testbed for human life in space. And yet, this is just one small step toward answering the larger question. Living on a station a few hundred kilometers from Earth is one thing, comforting in its proximity. The crew sees Earth every day, has quick communication with mission control, and can return home in an emergency aboard spacecraft docked at the station. The next phase of this grand human project will be far more daring, to live on the Moon, on Mars, or voyaging in deep space, where Earth is a tiny dot and help is distant. As our astronaut drifts into slumber, they dream of the future. A future where the lessons learned in this orbital home will carry humans farther, to new worlds, and perhaps one day to permanent homes away from the cradle of Earth. One day, not very far in the future, an astronaut much like the one on our station will step out of a lander and onto the surface of Mars. In the thin, cold air of that Martian dawn, sky-tinted butterscotch by dust, they will become an alien on an alien land. And yet, they will be home, in a sense, because home is where humans learn to live. Picture it. A small cluster of habitats stands on a flat plain near the foot of a rusty hill. The habitat modules are cylindrical and covered in reddish soil, piled thick for radiation shielding. They are connected by pressurized tunnels, like a string of beads, forming the first human outpost on Mars. Inside one module, a woman wakes from her bunk. She yawns and stretches, feeling the gentle tug of Martian gravity, just over a third of Earth's, enough that she doesn't float, but also enough that she feels light and bouncy. Getting out of bed, she has to be careful not to push off too hard. She's still adjusting to how little effort is needed to move here. It's Sol 45, the 45th Martian day of the mission, and she has work to do. She dresses in a simple jumpsuit and slippers with Velcro, so her feet can grip the metal floors. The lights have come on automatically to simulate an Earth-like day-night cycle, but she knows outside the sun has risen as well. The HAB's life support systems murmur in the background, fans circulating air, pumps moving water. They are her lifeline. Here, if a filter clogs or a circuit fails, it must be fixed swiftly. There is no backup atmosphere outside, only a wayfish CO2-rich air at barely 1% of Earth's pressure. She checks a tablet that shows environmental readouts. Oxygen level normal, CO2 scrubbers nominal, water reserves 85%. Some lost to a small leak last week, but they patched it. Radiation levels are within safe bounds for now, thanks to storm shelters and the soil on the walls. All good for the moment. She floats a moment. Well, not floats, but feels almost as if she could. In Mars's weak gravity, everything is easier to lift. Her own body feels both strong and fragile. Over weeks, her muscles have had to learn a new gait and new exertions. She doesn't feel the constant downward pull she grew up with, and sometimes her inner ear still gets confused, especially when she moves her head too fast. But day by day, she's adapting, becoming a creature of Mars. In the adjacent module, 2 colleagues are already up and about. One is firing up a small stove to warm breakfast, oatmeal made from grain they brought, rehydrated with precious water. On Mars, every drop of water is as valuable as gold. They extract some from the soil and ice and recycle every drop of urine and condensation. Nothing can be wasted if they hope to become self-sufficient. The other colleague is checking on their greenhouse, a bubble-like structure attached to the habitat. Inside, under LED lights, leafy greens and radishes grow in hydroponic trays. The sight of vibrant green plants against the backdrop of red Martian soil through a window is surreal and comforting. Those plants are not just food, they are companions, little living pieces of Earth contributing oxygen and moisture to the habitat and sanity to the crew. After breakfast, the woman suits up for an EVA, extravehicular activity, going outside into the Martian environment. She dons a thick undergarment, then the pressure suit's legs, torso, arms, and helmet, checking seals meticulously. Mars may not be as instantly lethal as the vacuum of space, but its air would still suffocate unprotected in moments, and its dust, if inhaled, could wreak havoc on lungs. She works with her teammate to go through the airlock cycle. With a hiss and a clunk, the outer door opens, and for the first time this week, she steps directly onto Martian soil. Beneath her boots, the ground is a fine, powdery dust mixed with pebbles. Her first steps kick up little puffs that drift lazily down, far slower than on Earth. The landscape around her is otherworldly, yet strangely familiar in some ways. Hills and rocks under a salmon sky. Overhead, the sun is smaller than she's ever seen it, but it still shines brightly, casting sharp shadows in the thin air. Two small moons, Phobos and Deimos, would be visible at certain times, but right now, the morning sky hides them. On other evenings, she has watched Phobos rise and race across the sky in just a few hours, a swift grey speck, and traced Deimos creeping along more languidly. The sight of these tiny moons, once mere names in astronomy books, now familiar companions overhead, always reminds her how different this world is, and yet how it shares with Earth the same celestial poetry, a dance of moons and sun, of day and night. Today's task is to lay more power cables from their nuclear reactor to a new excavation site. They have a compact fission reactor humming a safe distance from the hab, providing steady power day and night, a necessity on a planet where dust storms can linger for months and solar panels might be choked under layers of fine silt. Indeed, a few weeks back, a storm raged for days, turning the sky into a tawny blur. The habitat survived on stored energy and the reactor's steady output, but it was a reminder of how hostile and unpredictable Mars can be. She trundles in her suit toward a half-buried cable spool. Walking in Mars gravity in a spacesuit is an odd shuffle hop, lighter than walking in an Apollo moon suit, 1/6G, where astronauts famously bunny hopped, but still requiring some bounce in the stride to overcome suit stiffness. Behind her golden visor, her eyes scan the ochre terrain. Distant cliffs mark the edge of an ancient crater. To the east, the dawn sun sparkles off something, the ice of a shallow subsurface frost exposed by their drilling, perhaps. Beauty and resources intermix in her engineer's mind. Where there is ice, there is water for life support, for fuel production, maybe even one day for making bricks or concrete. Back inside the main habitat, another crew member monitors her progress via suit telemetry and cameras. Everything in this pioneering base is carefully orchestrated, safety first, through constant communication. However, unlike on the space station, where a call to Houston is instantaneous, communications with Earth now lag and are scheduled. At this moment, Earth is about 12 light minutes away. If she sends a message, a beloved voice from home won't answer for nearly half an hour, if not more. There is no mission control guiding their every move. The crew here have learned to be largely self-reliant, a small tribe of humans on a frontier. They do have scheduled comm windows to transmit data, get news, and consult on big decisions, and yes, to exchange personal messages with loved ones. But the day-to-day operations rest on their shoulders. On Mars, the sense of distance, from Earth, from immediate help, settles in as a serious weight that even the low gravity cannot lift. Yet they are not lonely in the cosmic sense. At night in the hab, when the crew gathers for dinner or a game of cards, they often talk about how connected they still feel. Earth is a bright star in their dusk sky, and the source of voices, albeit delayed, that they hear regularly. They know thousands of people on Earth are following their mission with fascination, that children in classrooms are drawing pictures of them and dreaming of following in their footsteps. The mental support that provides is immense. They carry the hopes of humanity here, which gives them purpose on the hard days. The Martian day, called a sol, is about 40 minutes longer than an Earth day. They've adjusted their schedules gradually to this slightly longer rhythm. Their clocks run on Mars time now. Sunset on Mars, which will come in the early evening local time, is a spectacle of blue hues, dust in the atmosphere causing the sun's light to bend differently than on Earth, so the sky around the setting sun turns a cool blue, while the day sky is butterscotch. She hopes to finish her EVA in time to catch it. On some sols, after the day's work is done, the crew all go out together in their suits, just to stand near the hab and watch the sun dip, sharing a quiet awe. They've jokingly dubbed that ritual Martian sundowners, echoing an Earth tradition, but literally watching the sun down. Moments like that knit their small community together, forming memories that will become the stuff of legends for future Martians. Their plan is to gradually expand this outpost. Already, semi-autonomous robots are piling regolith, Martian soil, into a low berm around the hab as extra shielding and a windbreak. In a few years, new modules will arrive on landing rockets, perhaps an inflatable habitat that can be covered with soil to create a larger living volume. The crew fantasizes about a proper shower or a small centrifuge gym that could simulate Earth gravity for an hour a day. Bit by bit, what started as survival will grow into comfort. They may carve out a proper dining room or an observation cupola with thick glass to gaze at the Martian landscape without a visor in the way. Mars will change them. Physically, if they stay long enough, years, they might experience further bone loss beyond what they had in weightlessness during the journey. But Mars offers something the journey and station did not: partial gravity, which may be enough to keep some bodily systems functioning more normally. Only time and research will tell. They monitor their health constantly, measuring bone density, muscle mass, blood counts to see if cosmic radiation is doing damage at the cellular level. Mars lacks a global magnetic field, and its thin atmosphere gives little shelter from high-energy cosmic rays. Over a long stay, each person accumulates radiation exposure that on Earth might take decades, raising their risk of cancer or other illnesses. Their habitats have water tanks and supply crates lined around sleeping areas to shield them, and there's a storm shelter, a heavily shielded closet, to cram into during solar flares when radiation spikes. Accepting a higher lifetime radiation dose was part of the bargain of coming here, a risk each volunteer understood. Despite the hardships, they also feel the exhilaration of true exploration. Every time they drive their electric rover over untraveled ground or drill into Martian rock for samples that might hold signs of ancient life, they feel like pioneers in the deepest sense. In the evenings, they catalogue findings, perhaps evidence that eons ago a stream flowed near this base, or the discovery of complex organic molecules in the soil. The search for Martian life, past or present, is ongoing and deeply meaningful. If they find even fossils of microbes, it changes humanity's understanding of our place in the universe. They would have neighbors, albeit long dead and microscopic, in the cosmic ocean. For now, Mars has yielded no incontrovertible proof of past life, but hints in certain minerals and patterns keep them looking. Back inside after her EVA, the woman sheds her suit and checks off the tasks accomplished. She and her crewmate managed to lay the new power cable and also inspected a nearby ridge for a potential construction site for additional solar panels. Her muscles ache pleasantly from the effort. She rehydrates and takes a moment to respond to a message from Earth, a delayed email from her mother, full of encouragement and homely gossip. She smiles at the attachment, a photo of the old oak tree in their yard, its branches heavy with summer leaves. It strikes her that on Mars there are no trees, no birds or flowing water, none of the life that makes Earth so endlessly vibrant. If humans are to live here long term, they will have to bring those things in some form. Greenhouses for trees, artificial ponds for fish, Perhaps one day attempts at terraforming portions of the landscape. That is a project for centuries, altering a planet's climate by releasing trapped CO2, planting hardy engineered vegetation, thickening the atmosphere. She wonders if it will ever truly be possible, or if Mars will always require domes and suits. That's not a question she needs to solve today. Today's question was where to run a cable and how to fix a bulky rover wheel. As night falls, the crew of 4 gathers in their central module for dinner. The habitat interior is cozy now. Dimmed lights, the hum of life support, a lullaby of machinery. They trade jokes about the day's minor mishaps, a dropped wrench tumbling down a hill, a computer crash that required a reboot. They also celebrate their wins. The outpost's solar array is now fully wired and doubling their energy input on clear days, and they harvested their first ripe Martian-grown tomatoes yesterday, juicy and bright red. That was cause for a little party. They each savored 2 cherry tomatoes, eating them slowly with a pinch of salt, marveling at how something could taste both of Earth and of this new world, perhaps a note of Martian mineral tang in the flavor. Small victories like that keep the mission spirit high. After dinner, they continue a tradition started on Sol 1. Each person shares something they are grateful for or a highlight of the Sol. It might seem a bit sentimental, but it frames each day positively. One says, "I'm grateful the reactor's been running without a hiccup for 2 months." Another adds, "I'm happy I got to see that blue sunset. It was stunning tonight." The woman smiles and says, "I'm grateful for my crewmates. Couldn't have laid that cable without you." It's earnest. Out here, gratitude is as essential as oxygen. They share a laugh and know each other's pick-me-ups. And these moments of reflection keep them grounded psychologically, even on an alien ground. They then gather around a tablet to watch a movie together. A decades-old, Mars-themed film for some humor, laughing at what the filmmakers of the past got wildly wrong or surprisingly right. Outside, Mars is silent and cold under a blanket of stars. Inside, human laughter and the sound of reconstituted popcorn, made from a precious bag of kernels, a treat reserved for special nights, fills the habitat. In this moment, Mars is not just a science experiment or a hostile frontier. It is home, at least for now, for these 4 pioneers. And they think about those who will follow. Already, other crews are training on Earth, and plans are drawn to send larger habitats, more supplies, perhaps the components of a 3D printed brick factory or a greenhouse that can support fruit trees. If these first outposts prove that humans can endure and stay healthy, more settlers will come. Perhaps in a couple of decades, a permanent colony will be established with dozens of people rotating in and out, and some opting to stay longer, building families and communities. A child conceived on Mars, is that even advisable with the radiation and lower gravity? Science hasn't answered that yet. Likely it won't happen until we understand more. The crew sometimes muses about the first Martian baby. They imagine the media frenzy and the debates on Earth about the ethics. But if humanity is to truly live in space, those steps will eventually be taken. Mars is a stepping stone further into the solar system. As they drift to sleep in their bunks, the crew might dream of the great volcano Olympus Mons or the deep canyon Valles Marineris, imagining future explorers trekking those wonders. They might also dream of other frontier outposts being established, perhaps a research camp on the icy plains of Jupiter's moon Europa, or rotating cities in free space as O'Neill envisioned, glittering like new stars in the night. Tonight, Earth is rising for them. Out a small, overhead porthole of the habitat, the Earth appears as a bright, blue-white star climbing above the horizon. It's a reminder that, despite being millions of kilometers away, they are still connected to the cradle of life. They carry a piece of Earth in every breath. The nitrogen-oxygen mix in their hab originated from Earth's air, in every bite of food, grown from Earth seeds or shipped from Earth, and in every beat of their hearts. But with each passing soul, they are also forging something new, a way of life distinctly not earthly. One day, when flights become routine and this base grows into a settlement, a newcomer might land on Mars and see how people have adapted, maybe wearing lighter clothing woven with radiation-proof fabrics, following a slightly shifted circadian rhythm, celebrating new Martian holidays, speaking slang that blends Earth languages with terms born of this soil. The history books will mark these early years of Mars habitation as the turning point when humans became a multi-planet species. But for the crew living it, it's less grandiose. It's a series of daily chores, challenges, and joys. It's checking suits, fixing water recyclers, planting seeds, and telling stories under an unfamiliar sky. It's science fiction made mundane and thus made real. They understand that everything they do, from how they deal with boredom to how they maintain their rover, paves the road for those who come next. In the quiet of the Martian night, one of the crew steps into the airlock's intermediate chamber, the porch, just to look through a porthole at the stars. The Milky Way's band is visible here with stunning clarity, unmarred by any city lights or even much atmosphere. It strikes her, all that we have done, from living on a space station to planting our flag on the moon to now building a haven on Mars, is but the opening chapter of a much larger tale. The universe is vast, yet here on this red planet we stand, proof that humanity can step into that vastness and hold our own. She presses her gloved hand against the glass, as if reaching toward those stars. Perhaps one day, humans will go further than Mars, outward to the moons of Jupiter or beyond, carrying our homes with us. It sounds like fantasy, but so once did the scene outside her window, an earthling gazing up at the cosmos from the surface of Mars. She whispers softly, "Good night, Mars," before retreating inside. In that moment, Mars is no longer just a distant point of light or a mythic god of war. It's a place where someone can say goodnight and mean it, a place that has listeners to hear the whisper. In claiming that simple ritual, humanity quietly stakes its true claim. We belong among the worlds of the sky, not as conquerors, but as gardeners, caregivers, and students learning the ways of new soils. Even as some of us make homes on the moon and Mars, others choose to build homes free in space itself. Far ahead in time, picture an immense cylinder floating at a stable point between Earth and the moon. It is 20 miles long and 4 miles in diameter, rotating slowly once about its axis every couple of minutes. From a distance, it gleams with sunlight on its hull and the glint of giant mirrors angled along its length. This is an O'Neill cylinder, a human-made world in space, an Island 3 colony as dreamed of in the 1970s, finally realized perhaps a century hence. Now, shift perspective. We are no longer the astronaut in a cramped station, nor the pioneer in a Mars habitat. We are an inhabitant of this grand space city. We stand on a grassy hillside under a warm afternoon sun. Yet that sun is not a fiery ball fixed in a blue sky. It's coming from a mirror overhead, reflecting light from outside into the cylinder. We look up, and instead of blue sky fading to a horizon, we see the landscape curving up and over into the sky itself. Far, far above, on the opposite inner curve of the cylinder, there are other hills, forests, and even a sparkling lake, all hanging upside down from our vantage point. It is disorienting at first, but in this world, up is relative. The centrifugal force of the rotating habitat creates an artificial gravity, pulling everyone and everything toward the inner surface. The people living here walk on the inner skin of a giant spinning can, and what's above their heads is not air. Air fills the cylinder, held by its sealed shell, but the terrain on the other side of their world. We walk along a path through a field of wildflowers. Bees are buzzing. Real bees, descendants of those brought from Earth to pollinate crops in the colony's farms. Butterflies flit, and a small child runs past chasing one, laughter echoing. It smells like Earth here, rich soil, flowering trees, a hint of ocean breeze coming from a large saltwater reservoir that serves as a seaside for the colony's inhabitants. How did an ocean breeze get here? The engineers were clever. They built a mini sea connected to a lake stocked with fish and plankton, and giant fans circulate moist air to create a microclimate. There are even manufactured clouds drifting under the sky, really just the central axis of the cylinder, where weightlessness reigns and where condensation can form and hover. It's a careful balance of technology and nature, a vast terrarium managed by both AI and human ecologists to keep the environment stable and Earth-like. As we walk, we pass farmland, neat rows of wheat and corn that rustle in an artificial breeze, temperature and airflow regulated to simulate a gentle wind. There are fruit orchards too, and we spot people on ladders picking apples and pears. They wave. Perhaps we know them, because in a community of a few 100,000, people still form tight neighborhoods. This cylinder essentially holds the population of a small city, but spread over an interior surface area of 500 square miles, partitioned into alternating bands of habitat land and window. Ah, the windows. Stretching along sections of the cylinder are enormous strips of transparent material. Through one such strip, we see the blackness of space and a sliver of Earth far away. But those strips are currently covered by mirrors angled to let in sunshine. The mirrors outside catch sunlight and direct it through these windows, simulating a day-night cycle as they tilt. Right now, the mirrors are fully open. A bright noon floods the habitat. Later, they will angle shallower, dimming the light to an orange dusk for a few hours, then close entirely to create night. During the night period, small lamps on the cylinder's central hub mimic the gentle glow of stars, so that residents still have the psychological comfort of a starry sky, though some of those stars are actually other habitats visible through the windows, or distant spacecraft moving like slow meteors. We stroll into a town. It looks charmingly familiar, a mix of architectural styles. Here, a pagoda-like community center with solar panels disguised in its ornate roof tiles. There, a cluster of homes with porches and gardens climbing the walls. One building has a mural painted on its side. It depicts the history of this colony's creation. Scenes of robot miners on an asteroid extracting metals, of huge space cranes assembling the cylinder in orbit, of the first families moving in and planting the first tree. That tree, a great oak, stands in the center of town now, its branches spread wide, casting dappled shade on a cobblestone square. Under the oak, a market is in progress. People of all ages browse stalls. One sells strawberries and melons grown in the colony. Another has handmade furniture crafted from colony-grown bamboo. There's music playing, a duo with a violin and a strange new instrument that produces electronic harmonies. The tune is lively. Children chase each other, bounding higher than they would on Earth, because here the gravity is set to about 0.9 g, enough to feel normal, but just a touch lighter to ease strain on the body and perhaps allow a bit more spring in the step. A teacher is leading a group of students through the market, perhaps on a field trip. We overhear her pointing out how the colony recycles everything. This plastic was once packaging that came from Earth and has been reused to make these garden pots, she says. The kids nod. They've grown up with closed-loop living. They know water is recycled endlessly, that yesterday's shower might become tomorrow's soup broth after passing through filters, and perhaps the colony's constructed wetlands, where plants and microbes help purify it. They find it ordinary that the air is monitored by sensors and adjusted by algae tanks that soak up extra CO2 and release oxygen. The management of life support is as invisible to them as the work of their own lungs and kidneys, just another set of organs at the city scale. As the afternoon wanes, we make our way toward one end of the cylinder, where a great window is uncovered, offering a view out into space. In the distance, we see the crescent Earth. It is smaller than we remember, but heartbreakingly beautiful still. A few freighters, uncrewed cargo ships, are visible as tiny glints moving to or from Earth, carrying goods and perhaps new immigrants. Nearby, another habitat cylinder floats, a twin city in space. Maybe they trade with each other or have a friendly sports rivalry. Indeed, they do have sports here. Tomorrow there's a zero-gravity acrobatics competition at the Axis. The central hub, where rotation cancels out gravity, has an open gym where people can float and play 3D sports that would make Earthlings gasp with envy. A young couple sits at the observation area, sketching the Earth and Moon through the huge window. Behind them, on a bench, an older man with AR glasses reads the news that spans multiple worlds. He's reading about a scientific breakthrough at a research station orbiting Titan, and an art exhibition opening in this very colony's cultural center, featuring sculptures that incorporate Martian basalt and terrestrial marble. The flow of commerce and culture across space has grown rich. There's even talk of a new cuisine developing among space habitats, a fusion of Earth traditions with novel crops grown in microgravity farms. As the sun mirrors begin to shift toward evening, the colony's internal sky changes hue. The bright daylight softens to a golden hour glow. Long shadows stretch from buildings and trees. One might forget for a moment that we're in a spinning cylinder and feel instead like we're in a valley on Earth at sunset. Families head home for dinner. Some ride bicycles along the colony's main loop road, banked subtly to account for the curve. There are few cars here. Transport is mostly walking, biking, or small electric carts. Distances aren't vast, and the environment is enclosed. In the air, a few personal drones zip by, delivering groceries from the market to homes. One drone passes overhead, carrying a freshly baked loaf of bread from the bakery. Baking in a cylinder had unique challenges initially, like ensuring the ventilation could handle bursts of hot air and the risk of floating crumbs. Hence, bread is often slightly more moist or made in self-contained loaves. But the smell of that bread wafts through the market and makes us hungry. We stroll by the bakery itself, and the baker, a stout woman with flour on her apron, offers us a sample of sourdough. We taste it. Delicious, made from wheat grown in the colony's fields, yeast cultures that came from Earth decades ago, water recycled thousands of times. Yet it tastes like home. That's the marvel. Space habitats like this allow people to carry home with them, to construct an environment where the psychological stresses of alienness are greatly reduced compared to, say, Mars or the Moon. In the early days of space settlement, people debated whether to settle planets or build free-floating habitats. In our scenario, humanity chose both. Planets like Mars offer raw materials, scientific discovery, and the romance of standing on another world. But habitats like this cylinder offer customizable Earth-like conditions anywhere we choose to put them, be it in Earth orbit, at a Lagrange point, or even mobile colonies that could migrate slowly between planets. They were built from the bounty of the asteroids. A single metallic asteroid provided the iron, nickel, and other metals to forge the structure. Lunar mines provided aluminum and silicon for the glass and electronics. Comets or icy moons provided water for oceans and air. They were assembled in space by swarms of robots and human workers over years. Each one was a tremendous investment of will and wealth. But once built, each became a self-sustaining cradle of life, expanding humanity's living space without being limited to planetary surfaces. In the colony's library, a building that might remind one of a grand university library on Earth, though its dome is clearly shaped to hold pressure, we find a section dedicated to Earth literature about space. On terminals, few physical books exist here, aside from symbolic ones. Most are digital for weight reasons. One could read the dreams of O'Neill, von Braun, and others from centuries earlier, and marvel at how ideas turn to blueprints, turn to reality. Some visitors from Earth are said to weep when they first arrive and walk under these artificial skies, overwhelmed by the achievement and the strangeness of an Earth-like bubble in the void. For inhabitants born here, it's simply the world they know, as normal as Earth is to Earthborn. Evening in the cylinder brings community gatherings. Tonight, there's a concert in the park near one end cap, the circular end of the cylinder, which has large windows that, when not shuttered, show the stars at the sky of that end of the world. Under twinkling lampposts, colonists listen to a string quartet play, some dancing in the grass under the gentle glow of simulated twilight. Fireflies. Yes, someone introduced fireflies here for sheer beauty, and they're carefully managed. Dot the air with little green sparks, laughter, clinking glasses of perhaps a space-made wine, grapes grown hydroponically in a dedicated vineyard module, aged in a barrel using wood imported from Earth. A novelty, but they do it. Conversations about art and science, about family and plans for expansion. All these fill the mild evening air. In one circle, an excited engineer describes a new project, a Bernal sphere habitat to be positioned in orbit around Saturn, where colonists can study the rings up close and tap the resources of the Saturn system. Another person says their cousin is moving to Mars to join a terraforming research team. He's proud, but says he personally prefers the controlled environment here. Mars is amazing, but I like my gravity at 1G and my air nice and thick, he jokes. As we wander away from the crowd up a slight hill, gravity lightens a bit, moving closer to the axis. We find a small observation bubble where one can float in microgravity and look out. We push off and drift into this bubble, tethered so we don't float away. Here, away from the pull of the spinning floor, we experience weightlessness again. Through the clear bubble, we see our habitat curving around us, a huge arc of illuminated land against the backdrop of space. Beyond it, stars and the glowing band of the Milky Way. Off to one side, the Earth and Moon system glints. In another direction, a faint reddish spark that is Mars, and maybe, with squinted eyes, the glint of one of the colonies orbiting it. We reflect. Humanity now lives in a multitude of places. Some live under alien sunsets on planetary surfaces. Others inside creations like this that marry human engineering with the comfort of Earth's environment. Each choice came with challenges, enormous technical hurdles, ethical questions about who goes and how, and the need to ensure we didn't abandon our home planet even as we expanded outward. Indeed, even now Earth is cherished and protected. Lessons learned from seeing its fragility from space influence how civilization treats the cradle. Many heavy industries have been relocated off Earth to places like this habitat or the Moon's far side, sparing Earth's biosphere from pollution. Space-based solar power stations beam clean energy down to cities, replacing fossil fuels. In turn, Earth provides these colonies with culture, people, and an anchor of meaning. The exchange is constant. Ships travel back and forth carrying immigrants, exports, art, ideas. A soft chime in the habitat signals night time, 11 p.m. by colony time. The mirrors have fully closed now, and only a dim twilight persists from some streetlights and the luminous band of the Milky Way visible through the windows. Many head to their homes, while some night owls and astronomers stay up to enjoy open sky mode. With mirrors closed, through the window strips you can directly see space, and the interior is dark enough for stargazing. For those on the valley floor, the stars appear in long stripes overhead, since the window is a continuous ring around the cylinder. Some even lay on blankets in their yards to watch the constellations, perhaps teaching their children new constellations invented for their unique sky, or pointing out the moving lights of a spacecraft going by. We drift back down from the observation bubble to the ground, or what feels like ground, and feel gravity gently catch hold of us as we near the inner surface. The cylinder's engineering is so seamless that one can almost forget it's rotating. Only the slight Coriolis effect when you drop a ball, or the sight of the world curving up overhead, gives it away. Those who grow up here know no other normal. To them, the idea of an endless sky that doesn't curve around is perhaps unsettling when they visit Earth. For them, being able to travel by floating up to the hub is as ordinary as taking an elevator. They do travel. Commerce and trips between colonies and planets are common. Perhaps tomorrow a passenger ship will depart from a docking port on the end cap, carrying tourists to a resort around the Moon, while another arrives from Earth with new settlers and entrepreneurs excited to start businesses in space. Spacefarers from different habitats visit one another, leading to an intermixing of subcultures, a true spacefaring culture slowly emerging, made of many threads of Earth but woven in new patterns. Standing here, we realize humanity has become something new and yet remains the same. We carry our needs for community, for nature, for meaning, wherever we go. On this rotating world, there are theatres where Shakespeare is performed, with clever wirework for the zero-G scenes, museums preserving memories of Earth's history and the saga of space settlement, festivals that mix Earth holidays with new cosmic ones. Perhaps on Earth Day each year, the colony holds a celebration where everyone dresses in blue and green and gives thanks to the planet that birthed us. Perhaps there's a Founders' Day commemorating when this cylinder first spun up to full rotation and people moved in, an event that kids here learn about as we learned of Plymouth Rock or the first airplane flight. One of the most moving spots in the colony is a memorial garden at one end, where a grove of trees encircles a sculpture honoring those who enabled human space settlement. Names of early astronauts, scientists, visionaries, and even those who lost their lives in accidents are etched in a ring. Colonists sometimes come here to reflect on the journey that led from one fragile world into countless new homes in the cosmos. It's bedtime for most in this cylinder. As lights in house windows wink out along the curving neighborhoods, an observer at one end would see the habitat's inner surface sprinkled by patches of darkness and the glow of a few streetlights, like a mirror image of a star field. One might imagine that this habitat itself is a star, with the people as the living light inside it. We retreat to a guest lodging. Yes, they have hotels in space colonies. Visitors from Earth or other habitats come through regularly. Looking out the window of our room, we see the town below settling into quiet. A dog, brought as an embryo from Earth and raised here, space settlements began to include pets once ecology became stable enough, trots alongside its owner on a late-night walk. The artificial day's warmth dissipates, and a cool night breeze, managed by the habitat's systems, flows through the open window. We lay down and gaze up through a skylight at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there is the original home, Earth, shining over us. And here, in this second home built by human hands, life continues the story that began on that blue cradle. As the habitat gently rotates through the void, carrying its precious cargo of life, one can imagine that from afar, it looks like just another glinting star, yet inside it, humanity thrives. It is one world of our own making among many now awakening across the once empty night. Tomorrow, the sun mirrors will open on schedule, and another day in the life of this space colony will commence. Children going to school, where classes include Orbital Mechanics 101 as a standard subject, farmers tending hydroponic rice paddies, artists painting murals on the cylindrical sky, scientists conducting microgravity experiments up near the hub, engineers fine-tuning the habitat's rotation or planning expansions for new residents, and perhaps a spaceship departing to start a new colony somewhere further. This normalcy is extraordinary. What was once science fiction is now daily life. Leaving this colony and our reverie of it behind, one cannot help but feel optimistic that there is hardly any limit now to where humans can go. If we can create an Earth-like haven in the void here, we can do so near other planets, around other stars, carrying the torch of life with us. The cylinder habitat stands as proof. We are not confined to the lands nature gave us. We can build new ones, responsibly and beautifully, and flourish within them. Humanity stands at a threshold, one foot planted firmly on our homeworld, and the other stepping into the cosmos. In floating above Earth, we asked, can we live in outer space? The journey we've imagined, from the first astronauts in fragile capsules, to researchers in orbiting labs, to pioneers on Mars, to entire cities spinning among the stars, answers with a resounding yes. Yes, we can live out here. But more than that, we can find a way to not just exist, but to truly belong in space, to make it home. In doing so, we have been forced to grow. We had to develop technologies to feed and shelter ourselves far from any natural haven. And those technologies taught us greater respect for the closed-loop life system of Earth as well. We had to confront ethical questions, ensuring that as we venture outward, we do so as equals, avoiding the colonial sins of our past, not carving up new worlds, but engaging with them responsibly. Perhaps we wrote new spacefaring charters as we went, agreements that no one can exclusively claim a world, that Mars and beyond must be settled in peace, that the vacuum of space is a commons to be cared for. In our better timeline, we learned these lessons. We made space not a Wild West for a few, but a garden for all, tended with foresight. Living in space has changed us in unexpected ways. It has broadened our identity. When the first people born off Earth come of age, humanity will have to decide, are they still fully Earthling or something new? In truth, we will all be something new, a multi-planet, multi-habitat species, united by our origins and diversified by our experiences. A person born on Mars might call themselves Martian and develop a love for their rust-hued world, just as a person born in a cylinder habitat might feel pride in their city of the stars. But ideally, this diversification of homes does not fracture humanity. Rather, it reinforces a deeper truth, whether under an alien sky or an engineered dome or the blue vault of Earth. We are all human. We carry the same stardust in our bones, the same yearnings in our hearts. For the artist living in a lunar settlement, creating sculptures from moon dust, the scientist on a years-long voyage toward Jupiter's moons, analyzing data as Jupiter grows from a dot to a giant marbled sphere outside their window, the farmer tending hydroponic rice in an orbital habitat with Earth overhead, they all share in the great human saga. They swap stories over light-minute delays, trade goods and songs across the void, celebrate each other's festivals, perhaps Earth's New Year, as well as the anniversary of their habitat's founding. Space has not diminished culture. It has amplified it, given it new canvas and context. There will be philosophical shifts too. When the majority of humans, one distant day, live off Earth, our perspective on issues like environmental stewardship, resource use, and even the meaning of nature will evolve. Having seen entire planets as singular, fragile spheres, how could we not become, at heart, guardians of worlds? The overview effect that once struck individual astronauts may become a common mindset of our spacefaring civilization, a constant awareness of the unity and preciousness of all life-bearing islands in the cosmic sea. Earth, our beautiful birthplace, might then be treated with the reverence it deserves, a cherished garden in the midst of a bustling space civilization, preserved and healed with knowledge gleaned from managing ecosystems in space. We might become gentler with our cradle precisely because we can live elsewhere. We would no longer see Earth as a resource to exhaust, but as a beloved ancestral home to protect. And what of existence itself? Some thinkers once worried that moving into space might cause us to lose our grounding, to play God with environments. But perhaps the opposite has happened. It has humbled us. In space, we directly confront the vastness of the universe and the limits of our knowledge. Each new habitat we build, each new planet we touch, reminds us how much there is to learn and how careful we must be. We have become both students and stewards on a cosmic scale. With each step beyond Earth, we carry not only our ambition, but a responsibility to use what we've learned to protect life, to spread life, and to honor that spark of life we've so far found only on our own world. Imagine far in the future, a traveler returning to Earth after many years born and raised in the colonies. As their ship enters Earth's atmosphere and they gaze at blue oceans and green continents directly for the first time, they might feel a profound connection. This is the legendary birthplace they've heard of, the origin of their people. They step out onto the soil and maybe gravity feels heavy, the air feels thick, the sounds of birds and rustling leaves nearly bring them to tears because they've known only controlled nature. In that moment, they and we realize that leaving Earth has only deepened our appreciation of Earth. And conversely, those of us who remain earthbound look up at night and feel pride and comfort that our kin dwell among those stars, that humanity has grown, not in a way that abandons its past, but that fulfills its potential. We have become, in essence, citizens of the universe, as at home in the sky as we once were on the savannah. If one believes in destiny, perhaps this was ours, to extend life's reach, to be the bridge between worlds. If one believes in the power of choice, then it was our greatest collective choice, to not remain confined and vulnerable on one planet, but to brave the unknown and ensure our survival and flourishing across new domains. Now, picture once more a human body floating above Earth. Only this time, they are not alone. Around them, the lights of human habitation sparkle in concert with the stars. There is a space station nearby with a rotating torus where hundreds work and play. There is the moon in the distance, with the glint of domes at its south pole where settlements harvest ice and welcome new arrivals. Mars shines reddish, a beacon of a new society growing in its plains and craters. Perhaps even beyond, a faint shimmer betrays a caravan of ships embarking on the first voyage to another star. The solitary figure floats in awe, not of emptiness, but of a cosmos that is awakening with life's presence. They turn their gaze to the blue earth below, a jewel that gave birth to all this. "Thank you," they whisper, a quiet benediction to our home world. Then they turn outward, toward the distant stars that beckon. In their eyes is the reflection of earthlight mingled with starlight, and maybe, just maybe, the light of a distant habitat where someone else at that same moment is looking back toward Earth. Across the darkness, human beings see each other's lights and know we have made the endless void into a tapestry of homes. Can we live in outer space? Yes. We live there now. We will live there more and more. Outer space is becoming not a void, but a vast village, with Earth as its heart and humanity as its soul. What was once our ultimate question has become our continuous story, a story of adaptation, exploration, creativity, and care. And as we carry this story forward, we remain humble beneath the stars. We remember that we are still small in the cosmic expanse, but we have one extraordinary gift: the ability to imagine and to act, to dream and to build. In the silence of space, a new chapter of human destiny is being written in the trails of rocket flames and the green sprouting leaves of orbital gardens. It's a chapter that says our home is not one place, but many. That wherever we go, we bring our humanity with us and find ways to belong. Calmly, cinematically, poetically, we continue our voyage, generation after generation, turning science fiction into living fact, turning distant lights into neighborly beacons. The story of living in outer space has no end, only new beginnings. And somewhere, sometime in the future, a family will stand together on a hill under an alien sky, perhaps with 2 moons, or rings, or a swirl of galaxies visible, and they will watch a sunset and know that they are home. Different sky, different ground, but home nonetheless. Because home is wherever we build a life filled with meaning, connection, and hope. Thus, the next chapters are ours to write, guided by curiosity, caution, and the enduring truth that the sky is not a limit at all, merely the gateway to an endless home among the stars. For ultimately, the question we began with has transformed. It is no longer merely, can we live in outer space, but rather, how will we choose to live and to thrive as citizens of the cosmos? With outer space as our new ocean and infinite frontier, we carry forward our humanity into the unknown, determined to shape it with wisdom and wonder. That journey, boundless in scope and rich with new beginnings, lies before us all, under the light of 1 billion distant suns. Drifting in darkness, one might assume we have entered pure emptiness, a perfect void. But paradoxically, this void is full, invisible to our eyes, intangible to our skin, an entire invisible architecture underlies the darkness. Space is not a barren stage. It is alive with unseen phenomena. First, consider the idea of space itself as something, not just an emptiness to move through, but a fabric that can bend and ripple. Over a century ago, Albert Einstein revolutionized our understanding with the notion that space and time are intertwined and dynamic. Here in the silence, you can almost feel it. The very space around you has a texture, a geometry. You are weightless now, far from any planet's pull, yet you still sense the faint tug of gravity from distant bodies. This is because the fabric of space-time is curved ever so subtly by the mass of everything in the universe. Even where there is no star or planet in sight, space isn't flat nothingness. It's shaped by the gravity of far-off galaxies, by clusters of matter unseen but present. Extend your hand, in imagination, and try to touch the darkness. What do you feel? Nothing. And yet, not nothing. Throughout this emptiness, fields permeate. Think of a field as a kind of invisible grid that can carry energy or force. One example is the gravitational field. It extends infinitely, binding galaxies and holding you gently in the cosmos even out here. Another example, the electromagnetic field. Even where no light shines now, the electromagnetic field is everywhere, capable of carrying light across trillions of kilometers or transmitting the crackle of a distant pulsar's radio whisper. It is through this field that starlight travels. And when that light passes by a massive object, the field, and thus space itself, warps, bending the light's path. Now dive deeper. Modern physics tells us that even in a perfect vacuum devoid of all matter, quantum fields fill space. Picture, on an incredibly small scale, that the silence is broken by a constant, gentle fizz of activity. Particles flicker in and out of existence, like tiny fireflies, appearing and disappearing so quickly we can hardly say they were there. This isn't science fiction, but the strange reality of the quantum vacuum. What we call empty space is more like an ocean of possibilities, with fields for every particle, electrons, quarks, photons, and more, lying dormant like a calm sea, yet capable of excitement. By the weird rules of quantum physics, these fields flutter, creating particle-antiparticle pairs that just as quickly annihilate back into nothingness. It's a quiet dance going on all around us, utterly imperceptible on human scales, but very real nonetheless. Here, in the deep void, nature abhors a vacuum in the old saying, but not by filling it with air or ordinary matter. Instead, nature fills it with fields and potentials. In truth, making a truly empty space with absolutely nothing in it is impossible as far as we know. The cosmos always has something at play, even if it's just the subtle curvature of space-time or the low hum of those quantum fluctuations. Consider the space around your body now. Unseen particles called neutrinos are flying through you by the trillions each second, cast off by distant stars and ancient explosions. You don't see or feel them, yet they are there, ghosting through the empty space, as if it were a busy crossroad. Meanwhile, gravitational waves, faint ripples in space-time from faraway cosmic cataclysms, may be washing through this region even now, imperceptibly stretching and squeezing distances by the tiniest fraction. Space, for all its stillness, can carry these ripples across billions of light years. All these things remind us that the void is teeming, but in hidden ways. It's as if the darkness has its own heartbeat, too low or diffuse for us to detect without instruments, but very real. In deep space, sensitive instruments have picked up signs of this hidden life. The hiss of particles from the sun gradually fading into the faint crackle of cosmic rays from the galaxy, or the way a spacecraft can detect wisps of magnetic fields draped through interstellar space. Not long ago, the Voyager 1 probe, humanity's most distant messenger, slipped beyond the influence of our sun's solar wind and entered interstellar space. Out there, it heard something astonishing, a faint hum of plasma,
a vibration in the very sparse gas between the stars. In the middle of what seemed like utter emptiness, there was the slightest whisper, the interstellar medium itself quietly singing on a narrow radio frequency. It was as if the void had a voice after all, hidden in electromagnetic vibrations. So as we float here, let's banish the thought that we are in nothingness. Instead, realize we are immersed in a grand, subtle structure. We are in the midst of an invisible ocean that connects all things. Space is not empty. It is a medium, not a medium like air or water, but a medium that carries light and gravity, a stage that can bend and ripple, a field of potential. If we had the right senses, the darkness would light up with activity. We might see the gentle curvature like dim swirls in black glass, hear the soft static hiss of particles popping in and out of existence, or feel the tug of far-flung masses moving the fabric under us. The silence and darkness remain, but now we know the truth. Behind them lies complexity and structure. The void is alive with fields, and those fields cradle us even as we drift. The emptiness, ironically, is full. Having opened our minds to the living void, we can now carry onward. With respect for the unseen tapestry around us, we begin our outward journey from Earth, a journey that will take us through successive layers of cosmic emptiness, each revealing new wonders hidden in the dark. From home into the dark, leaving Earth's embrace. Our journey truly begins now. Picture Earth below you, a tender blue glow haloed in sunlight against the black of space. As we depart our home, we leave behind the last familiar sounds, the whisper of wind, the murmur of human life, even the faint radio chatter from civilization. As we rise above Earth's atmosphere, the air thins and the sky darkens from blue to indigo to black. The comforting blanket of atmosphere that carries sound is gone. The silence of space welcomes us fully, and the only remaining voice is the quiet hum of our spacecraft systems, or perhaps our own breath in the suit. Look down one more time at that lonely speck of a planet, shining against the cosmic night. It is astonishing how small the cradle of all humanity appears against the backdrop of the universe. In a few hours of imagined travel, Earth shrinks from a vast globe to a bright bluish star, then merges with the brilliant point of the sun. Soon, the inner solar system becomes a memory, a faint glow of our star with tiny pinpricks of planets that quickly vanish into the sun's glare. We glide past Mars's orbit. The ochre dot of the red planet recedes behind us. We pass mighty Jupiter, its banded clouds and great red spot just visible for a moment as a striped marble before it too is lost in the distance. We catch a last glimpse of Saturn's rings shining like a delicate halo. Then Saturn fades. Uranus and Neptune, pale blue twins, slide by one after the other, bidding us farewell with their cold, reflected sunlight. Each world's departure marks our ship's steady progress into the deep. With each passing planet, the sun's light dims slightly more, its warmth weakens. The solar system's glow, the bright stage of humanity's entire story, is shrinking behind us, turning into just one more star in the sky. Out here, sunlight is no longer the fierce golden flood we know on Earth. It has faded to a gentler, distant gleam. With each 100 million kilometers we travel, the sun diminishes, its rays growing weaker, until it is but an intense star among others, no longer blindingly bright. The warmth that once caressed our face on a summer day is now diffused. In shadows, the cold of space encroaches quickly. We are headed toward the edge of the solar system, a frontier not marked by any solid barrier, but by a change in the very environment around us. As we glide beyond the orbits of the outer planets, we cross through a diffuse realm of ice and rock, the Kuiper Belt, home to dwarf planets like Pluto and countless comets circling in the dark. These ancient frozen remnants occasionally catch a glint of sunlight, but mostly they drift unnoticed. Imagine passing one, an irregular chunk of ice and dust floating alone, sunlight just barely painting one side in a dim grey glow, the other side in perpetual night. This far from the sun, space takes on an even deeper black. Turn your gaze away from the sun's direction, and the sky is a rich spray of stars on velvet in every direction. Finally, we approach the heliopause, the boundary where the influence of our star wanes. Here, the solar wind, a stream of charged particles blowing outward from the sun, slows and collides with the sparse gas of interstellar space. It is the edge of the sun's protective bubble, the heliosphere, and beyond it lies true interstellar space. The Voyager 1 spacecraft crossed this boundary in 2012, and for the first time, a human-made object tasted the interstellar wind. Now we, too, symbolically cross this invisible threshold. The particle density around us drops even further. The breeze of particles from our sun gives way to an even fainter presence. The faint traces of gas, dust, and cosmic rays that fill the galaxy. Pause here for a moment. We are at the frontier of our solar system, tens of billions of kilometers from home. If you look back, you might just catch Earth's distant star-like glimmer, reflecting a bit of sunlight, perhaps not even visible without aid. All the planets we know are behind us now, clustered near that tiny sun. Ahead lies a gulf so vast our measures of distance strain to describe it. If we were truly aboard a spacecraft, this is the point where the sunlit solar system ends and the long night of interstellar space begins. Here, the silence deepens. We shut off our engines to drift and listen. Without the solar wind's charged particles zipping by, there is less hiss in our instruments. The void seems even quieter. We have left behind the last echo of Earth's radio broadcasts. They are still racing outward at the speed of light, but here even those signals are too faint to detect easily. It dawns on us. We are really, truly beyond the realm of the familiar. We stand, or rather, float, in a darkness that no human eye has directly beheld, with only our imaginations and robotic pioneers to guide us. Slowly, as our ship coasts further outward, the sun diminishes to a mere pinprick of light, no bigger or brighter than an ordinary star. We are now effectively in midnight, that is the same in every direction, a true 360-degree night with no sunrise to come. How does it feel? There is a serene yet disquieting beauty. The starry sky is breathtaking. With the sun's glare gone, we see more stars than ever before, a dusting of diamonds on black velvet in every direction. The Milky Way forms a gauzy band of light, the combined glow of billions of distant stars in our galaxy's disk. Amid these stars lurk faint hazy patches where interstellar dust blocks light beyond, making dark nebula silhouettes. We have one more layer of our solar system to traverse, the hypothetical Oort cloud, a vast spherical halo of comets that may extend a quarter of the way to the next star. These cometary ice balls are so spread out that we might not see any as we pass. They are like solitary snowflakes drifting miles apart. Statistically, we move through this region without encountering a single object. The distances are simply too great. When we finally emerge from this cloud, we'll be traveling physically. It would take many centuries or millennia at typical spacecraft speeds. The sun relinquishes us entirely. We are no longer bound to our home star. We are, for all practical purposes, between the stars. An overwhelming realization might strike us here. The scale of what we've crossed. It took us hours or days to leave the planets behind, but it would take years upon years to traverse the Oort cloud, and beyond that, many more to reach even the nearest star. And this is still just our cosmic neighborhood. The gap between stars is enormous and mostly empty, but not completely. As we venture onward, we carry with us the knowledge that emptiness is never absolute. Into the interstellar void, an ocean between the stars.
Now we sail truly in interstellar space, the space between the stars. The nearest stellar neighbor to our Sun, Proxima Centauri, lies unimaginably far ahead, over 4 light-years. If we continued on our craft at speeds far beyond what we currently achieve, it would still take many decades or centuries to reach it. The distances are so vast that for long stretches, it will seem we are going nowhere, surrounded by unchanging darkness. This is the oceanic gulf that separates star from star, and it is here that the character of deep space fully reveals itself. The interstellar void is often described as emptier than any vacuum we can create on Earth. There are essentially no large objects here, no planets or asteroids or moons, just the exceedingly sparse interstellar medium, a wispy mix of gas atoms, mostly hydrogen, and the occasional dust grain. On average, each cubic meter of space might contain only a few atoms of matter. Picture that, a volume of space the size of your living room with maybe one lone atom drifting through it. By comparison, that same volume of air on Earth contains on the order of 1025 molecules. The emptiness out here is almost absolute. And yet, as we've learned, it is not truly absolute. Those few atoms, those stray particles, matter on cosmic scales. It's cold out here, but not completely frozen. We'll discuss the exact temperature of space soon. For now, note that any atom drifting here is likely moving very fast, energized by shock waves from distant stellar explosions or cosmic rays that streak through. The interstellar medium can actually be quite energetic in places. Tenuous gas can be heated to millions of degrees by supernova remnants, so thin you wouldn't feel heat, but the atoms themselves zip about furiously. Elsewhere there are colder, dense pockets, molecular clouds, but those are relatively rare and far between. Mostly we traverse a quiet, diffuse haze. Every so often, as we journey, we might encounter a region with slightly higher density of material, perhaps skirting a tenuous nebula or brushing the edge of a spiral arm of the galaxy. Our Milky Way is structured. Its spiral arms contain concentrations of gas and dust where new stars are born. If our path takes us through one of these subtle structures, we might notice the stars around us, temporarily fewer as dark nebulas block them, or detect a faint increase in particle hits on our sensors. But then, like a ship leaving a patch of fog, we emerge again into clearer space. There is also radiation everywhere. We left behind the sun's intense radiation, but now we are bathed in a gentle rain of cosmic rays, high-energy protons and nuclei that zip through the galaxy at nearly light speed. They come from distant supernovae and energetic events scattered throughout the Milky Way. They silently pierce our spacecraft's hull, each a tiny subatomic bullet from some far-off celestial rifle. We don't see or feel them directly, but detectors would register little sparks as these cosmic rays pass through. Additionally, every now and then, a flash of lightning in the void. Not literal lightning, but an electromagnetic burst from something like a flaring star or a magnetar's distant pulse. We are too far to feel any direct effect, but our instruments might catch a blip of X-rays or gamma rays, brief reminders that even in emptiness, events happen. One might think nothing ever happens in interstellar space, but nature occasionally reminds us that even here, things occur. For example, shock waves from a distant supernova can traverse the void, a shell of slightly denser, hotter plasma expanding outward. If our ship were overtaken by such a front, extremely unlikely in our short travel window, we'd notice a sudden spike in particle density and radiation, as the shockwave, diluted though it is by distance, washes over us. It would be a reminder that even the silent sea of space has weather of a sort, cosmic weather, measured not in rain or wind, but in surges of radiation and gusts of charged particles. As we travel, let's imagine we cross paths with something unexpected. The chances are minuscule, but the galaxy is vast and full of surprises. Perhaps we encounter a lone fragment of a comet
or a rogue asteroid drifting, debris from some ancient encounter that was flung out here. More intriguingly, perhaps we detect the faint gravity or slight dimming of starlight indicative of a solitary star wandering the interstellar depths. Yes, a few stars have been kicked out of galaxies at tremendous speeds, destined to roam the space between galaxies forever. Or we might come across an interstellar cloud, a region where the gas is a bit denser, enough to form a nebula visible if illuminated by starlight. In our mind's eye, perhaps we alter course to skim the edges of such a ghostly nebula, its filaments glowing dimly blue or green from the light of embedded newborn stars. It would be a rare sight, tendrils of gas forming faint, intricate swirls against the darkness, like gauze lit from within. These clouds are the nurseries of future stars, though the process takes millions of years. Passing by one, we witness a balance of emptiness and substance. From a distance, the cloud is nearly invisible. Up close, you realize it's made of extremely tenuous gas that nevertheless, given enough of it, can birth brilliance. Without an external reference, it's easy to lose track of motion, but we are indeed moving, perhaps drawn subtly by the gravity of the nearest star ahead, or simply coasting on the momentum we had leaving the solar system. Let's orient ourselves. The nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, of which Proxima is a member, is a bit more than 4 light-years away from Earth. That's the distance light travels in over 4 years, roughly 40 trillion kilometers, an almost unfathomable gulf. If our ship somehow could travel a significant fraction of light speed, it would still take years to get there. At more realistic speeds, many millennia. And presently, in our poetic journey, we're not moving nearly that fast. We are drifting contemplatively. This emphasizes the sheer breadth of emptiness. Even at tremendous speeds, the journey between stars stretches longer than entire human lifetimes. And currently, we have chosen a path not directly toward any star, but out of the galaxy, meaning our journey in interstellar space will last even longer, essentially indefinitely, unless we aim for another galaxy, which is vastly farther still. Between us and the next galaxy, Andromeda, 2.5 million light-years away, there may be absolutely nothing large. The interstellar and eventually intergalactic distance is often just vast space with the occasional wandering atom or photon. No islands in the void, aside from those potential rogue objects we mused about, which themselves are extraordinarily few and far between. The darkness here is profound. If we turn off all the lights on our ship, the view is stark and primal. Without a nearby sun, space is nearly black to our eyes, except for the stars. And those stars, though numerous, do not illuminate our surroundings. Their light mostly travels on without hitting us unless we look directly at one. You could hold your hand in front of your face and not see it at all. There is no ambient glow, only the sharp rays coming from each distant star. If your hand isn't in one of those direct rays, it remains invisible, swallowed by black. That's an utter darkness few have experienced, since even on Earth at night, the atmosphere and environment scatter some light. Here, shadow and light are absolute. If we allow ourselves a moment of vulnerability, it's a bit unsettling. You truly are an entity in almost pure void, with only distant pinpricks of starlight around. This segment of our journey might feel uneventful, but in its quiet way, it teaches us a truth. The isolation of celestial islands, stars and their systems, is profound. Stars are like cities, separated by vast, uninhabited wilderness. We are traveling through that wilderness now. It humbles any traveler. We begin to sense why the night sky evoked such awe in our ancestors. Those stars are both tantalizing and unreachable beacons across a sea of nothing. As we continue toward the deeper reaches of our galaxy, or rather, out of our galaxy, we have set a course aiming above the galactic plane, seeking to exit the Milky Way. We prepare to encounter something that will bring many of these abstract concepts into a tangible form. A lonely world adrift in this sea of night, a rogue planet. Before we leave the domain of starlight entirely,
we might cross paths with one of these drifting worlds. It will give us a direct experience of what it means to exist in deep space without the light or warmth of a sun, a piece of solid matter enduring the cosmic night. Let's approach this silent, cold traveler next. Rogue planet, a lonely world, adrift in darkness. In the beam of our spacecraft's spotlight, something solid materializes out of the eternal night, a planet, but one with no star in sight. We have found a rogue planet, a wanderer in interstellar space. It's a world cast out from its parent star system long ago, now doomed to roam the galaxy in perpetual darkness. Our instruments first detect it not by sight, it's virtually black on black, but by a subtle gravitational tug and a slight blurring of background starlight, signs that a massive object is near. We angle our ship toward it and shine powerful floodlights to illuminate the surface as we draw closer. Imagine shining a flashlight into a dark ocean and revealing, in the void, the outline of an island. That is what this feels like. The rogue planet's surface slowly comes into view. Perhaps it is a rocky, frozen world, its surface coated in frost, or it could be a gas giant with faint, ghostly cloud bands visible in our spotlight. For concreteness, let's assume it's a rocky planet, somewhat larger than Mars. The surface is an expanse of ice and rock. Long, jagged cracks run across plains of frozen water or ammonia. If it once had an atmosphere, much of it may have condensed and frozen onto the ground in crystals that glitter in our lights like tiny stars on the surface. There is no day-night cycle here. The entire planet is in endless night. Only the faraway stars speckle its sky. They would appear as one might see from any dark location. Though without a sun, even the nearest stars would provide negligible illumination. If the planet has no atmosphere, the stars wouldn't twinkle. They'd be pinpoints in a stark black firmament. And they do not move through a night. The concept of a day or year has lost meaning without a sun to orbit or spin around in light. The planet might still rotate, but there is no sunrise, no sunset, just constant night, aside from our ship's transient lights. What is the temperature on the surface? Almost certainly near absolute zero, just a few degrees above it. Perhaps slightly warmer if the planet has internal heat left over or radioactive decay warming its core. But on the surface, any air or water is frozen solid. If there were an atmosphere once, it likely collapsed into frost and thin layers of ice on the ground when starlight vanished. A world like this is presumably geologically dead on the surface, although who knows, deep down there could be some warmth. Imagine stepping onto this world. You plant your boot on ground that has perhaps not felt a single touch in billions of years. Your suit's headlights cast long, sharp shadows over an alien terrain that has never known natural light. The ground crunches as you walk, possibly a mix of frozen gases and regolith. If there were any wind once, now there is complete stillness. If there were any life in the distant past, it likely perished or retreated deep below. The environment is as harsh as it gets, a cosmic winter that never ends. Look up from this rogue planet's surface. The sky is full of stars, likely breathtakingly so. Unpolluted blackness with the Milky Way arching overhead as a misty band. Without a sun of its own, the planet's sky knows only the light of other suns. If it has a moon or two, conceivably, if they were also ejected together, you might see their dark forms or faint reflected starlight as they drift, but nothing like the bright face of our moon. Centuries ago, the French philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote of the eternal silence of infinite space, filling him with dread. That sentiment resonates even now. The vast emptiness can test the courage of anyone. Standing on this rogue planet, you feel that eternal silence viscerally. The only sounds are your suit's breath and perhaps the crunch of your footsteps. The only light is what you bring. It is a tableau of utter isolation. Yet even here, one can find a strange beauty. The planet's frost-laden rocks sparkle under our lights. The stars above are unwavering and brilliant. Perhaps a distant nebula, or the glow of the Milky Way's core, adds a faint cloudy sheen in one portion of the sky. This world, though lonely, is part of the galaxy and shares in the grand cosmic panorama. Astronomers suspect there could be countless such orphan worlds in our galaxy, possibly even more free-floating planets than there are stars. Some might be gas giants, still slowly cooling from their formation, perhaps emitting a faint infrared glow from leftover heat. Others could be smaller, rocky bodies like the one we tread upon. If a rogue planet is large enough and had enough internal heat, it might retain a blanket of atmosphere. In rare cases, that internal heat, from radioactive decay or residual formation energy, could keep a subsurface ocean liquid beneath an insulating crust of ice. One can only speculate, but it's tantalizing. Could some form of life survive around hydrothermal vents on a rogue world's deep ocean floor, never seeing starlight yet eking out a living on geothermal energy? It sounds like science fiction, and likely is, but it highlights how the darkness, while harsh, might not be absolutely devoid of all possibility. For now, on the surface of this silent planet, there is no obvious life. We might find organic molecules or the frozen remnants of what was once an atmosphere. But nothing moves save ourselves. Nothing changes. Our presence is a brief spark of warmth and activity on a world that will soon revert to inert silence when we depart. We take a last look around. In a sense, this planet embodies many themes of our journey: isolation, cold, and darkness, yet also resilience. It continues along its lonely path regardless, a planet without a sun, carrying on through the night. In our short visit, we've brought a bit of light to it, literally illuminating what was hidden. But as we leave, it will recede into darkness again, continuing its quiet voyage around the galaxy's center. We board our craft and lift off. Our lights play over the craggy horizon one last time, then we angle away. The rogue planet grows small behind us, eventually becoming just another dark lump, invisible in the Black Sea. It will remain silently traveling, perhaps for billions of years, until maybe one distant day, purely by chance, it is captured by a new star or encounters another object. Most likely, it will wander forever. After experiencing an object so profoundly alone, our spacecraft, with its warmth and light, feels like a haven by contrast. We have the means to illuminate and understand our surroundings. We carry our environment with us. That little world had no such fortune. It must endure the cosmic night alone. Now, we set our course outward once more. Having encountered a solitary planet, we refocus on the larger journey, leaving the galaxy itself. Ahead, the stars begin to thin out. We are moving toward the edge of the Milky Way. The glow of the galactic plane, that river of stars, is getting fainter and narrower behind us. Before fully exiting, let's prepare by reflecting on how we know what lies ahead in the vast dark between galaxies. One key tool has been the phenomenon of gravitational lensing, which we touched on indirectly with the rogue planet, its gravity-bending starlight, and earlier in concept. It's worth pausing to appreciate how gravity in the dark can reveal the unseen before we venture into the truly sparse intergalactic void. Gravity's invisible lens, revealing the unseen. Before we leave our galaxy entirely, consider one more marvelous phenomenon, one that has been a silent companion in our exploration of the dark: gravitational lensing. It's the cosmos's way of letting gravity, even from invisible things, bend and play with light, creating natural telescopes and funhouse mirrors in space. Imagine observing a distant galaxy, billions of light years away. Normally, you'd see its faint smudge in the sky, and that's it. But if a massive cluster of galaxies lies in the line of sight between us and that far galaxy, something extraordinary happens. The cluster's gravity warps the space-time through which the distant galaxy's light travels. The result? We might see that single distant galaxy appear multiple times, or its image smeared into a curved arc of light, or even an eerie ring encircling the foreground cluster. Such a ring-like image is aptly named an Einstein ring, after Einstein, whose general relativity predicted this gravitational light bending. We encountered this concept up close near the black hole, where warping was so strong light could loop around. But gravitational lensing often happens on larger scales with galaxies and clusters acting as lenses. It is one of our most potent tools to map dark matter. Why? Because dark matter doesn't shine or reflect light, but it does have gravity. When we observe distorted, lensed images of background galaxies, we infer the presence and distribution of mass, including dark matter, in the lensing cluster. In fact, some of the clearest evidence of dark matter's existence and layout comes from noticing that lensing patterns demand more mass than visible galaxies provide. Consider the famous image of the Abell 2218 galaxy cluster. Photographs show numerous orange-yellow cluster galaxies and, amid them, strange stretched blue arcs. Those arcs are distant background galaxies whose light has been bent and magnified by the cluster's gravitational field. It's as if the cluster were a giant piece of curved glass warping their image. For a listener, what's intriguing is that gravitational lensing lets us see heavy things that are otherwise invisible. A black hole drifting in front of a background star can momentarily make that star appear brighter, a phenomenon called microlensing, because the black hole's gravity focuses the star's light toward us. In our journey, had we not known the black hole was ahead, we might first have noticed it by the distortion of starlight around it, stars seeming to smear and form rings around an unseen center. Even on huge scales, entire regions of dark matter in the cosmic web have been mapped via weak gravitational lensing, statistically analyzing tiny distortions in the shapes of thousands of background galaxies. By seeing how their shapes are coherently sheared, scientists can reconstruct the hidden mass distribution in front of them. It's akin to looking at a distant grid of lights through an uneven window pane. By the distortions of the grid's appearance, you discern the shape of the otherwise invisible glass. Gravitational lensing not only confirms dark matter's presence, it also produces some of the most awe-inspiring visuals in astronomy. The Einstein cross, for example, is a single quasar, a bright galactic nucleus, far away that appears as four identical star-like images arranged in a cross around a foreground galaxy's center. The galaxy's gravity splits the quasar's light into four. For a long time, this was one of the evocative proofs that gravity can mimic magic, one object appearing in multiple places at once. During our travels, if we had looked toward a massive galaxy cluster from just outside our galaxy, we likely would have seen such lensing arcs ourselves, slivers of light from galaxies hidden behind the cluster, made visible by gravity's lens. It's a beautiful reminder that even though space is dark and light travels straight, the shape of space itself can curve and reroute light, effectively letting matter paint with beams of brightness. To imagine it without visuals, picture walking in a dark forest at night with a lantern, the background galaxy. If there's a clear, curved piece of glass hanging invisibly in the air, the gravitational lens, you might suddenly see your lantern's glow form a ring or appear in strange patches on the trees around, even though there is only one lantern. You might not see the glass, but you know something powerful is there from the way your light behaves. Thus, gravitational lensing has been a hidden ally in exploring the dark. It assured us that unseen mass was truly there when we discussed dark matter. It created spectacular light shows near black holes and massive clusters, and it demonstrates vividly that gravity operates even in darkness, bending light itself to its will. The darkness can therefore produce illumination, not by emitting it, but by sculpting its path. In a broader sense, gravitational lensing shows how interconnected things are. A galaxy's image can be affected by another cluster millions of light years in front of it, which in turn is shaped by an even larger structure's dark matter. The universe is layered. The light from the deep past
passes through the structures of the later universe, carrying with it the imprint of everything in between. By the time it reaches our telescopes, that single beam of light has interacted with the gravity of stars, galaxies, and invisible mass lumps, telling a story in its distortions. As we prepare to leave the confines of our galaxy, gravitational lensing stands as one last example of a theme we've seen repeatedly. The invisible can be inferred and even visualized by its influence on the visible. In the grand dark tapestry of space, gravity is one of the threads connecting the seen and unseen, revealing the latter through subtle effects. It's a final piece of evidence that in the cosmic dark, absence often hides presence, whether it's hidden mass or an entire hidden truth about the structure of space-time. And with that understanding, we feel even more prepared as we plunge into the sparsest expanse yet, the gargantuan void between galaxies. The void between galaxies, intergalactic space, and the cosmic web. We engage our conceptual engines and leap onward, leaving the Milky Way's bright throngs of stars behind. Time and distance blur as we traverse tens of thousands of light years, rising above the galaxy's disk. At last, we find ourselves outside our home galaxy, looking back at it from a vantage point in intergalactic space. The Milky Way floats in our field of view, a majestic spiral, its whirling arms and central bulge, luminous with the combined light of hundreds of billions of stars. It is an island of light in a sea of darkness. Nearby, we see another haze of light, the Andromeda galaxy, our big neighbor, about 2.5 million light-years away, visible as a small smudge even to the naked eye from Earth, and from here, still just a modest ellipse of light. Scattered around are a few smaller fuzzy patches, satellite galaxies and distant members of our local group. We are now in intergalactic space, the space between galaxies. If interstellar space was an incredible vacuum, intergalactic space is even closer to pure nothing. The intergalactic medium, IgM, is even thinner than the interstellar medium. On average, in each cubic meter of intergalactic space, there might be only one atom or less. It's hard to convey such emptiness. In a cubic kilometer out here, there might be only a handful of particles. This is far emptier than even the best laboratory vacuums ever achieved. We have reached a level of near nothingness that challenges the imagination. If we turn in all directions, what do we see? The sky here is darker than ever. With the naked eye, even superbly dark adapted, you might see only the faint glow of our Milky Way behind us and Andromeda ahead, and a sprinkling of other distant galaxies as tiny, faint smudges of light if you know where to look. Everywhere else, blackness. But if we allow our eyes or instruments to integrate light over time, gradually we'd pick up an almost ghostly background glow. Innumerable remote galaxies too faint individually to register, plus one more thing, an all-pervading faint microwave glow, the cosmic microwave background, CMB, the afterglow of the Big Bang, coming from every direction. Our eyes can't see microwaves, but a suitable antenna would find the entire sky gently aglow at about 3K, just as we discussed earlier. Yet even here, as always, not empty holds true. The intergalactic medium contains matter, mostly extremely thin, hot plasma. In the spaces between galaxies within clusters, the IgM is hot enough to emit X-rays, temperatures of millions of degrees, though so dilute you wouldn't feel it. In the great cosmic voids, it's cooler and even more diffuse. But also, intergalactic space contains dust, albeit in almost vanishingly small amounts. Over eons, galactic winds from starbursts and quasars have blown a little dust out of galaxies. You might find a solitary grain of carbon or silicate drifting here. Ashes of long dead stars spread thin across cosmic gulfs. These dust grains are so few and far between that one could travel for light years and not encounter a single mote. Yet across the vast volumes, their existence can be inferred. For instance, they very slightly redden the light of faraway objects or produce a faint infrared background glow.
Collectively, the sparsely distributed gas in intergalactic space still accounts for a great deal of normal matter. In fact, astronomers found that a significant fraction, perhaps half, of all the atoms in the universe lurk in these nearly empty intergalactic filaments and sheets, the so-called missing baryons that don't reside in galaxies. It's poetic. The most desolate expanses still hide much of the universe's ordinary matter in a form so diffuse it eluded detection for decades. One could drift here for 1 million years and perhaps not collide with even one stray dust grain or atom. That's how empty it is. Yet we know this subtle medium is there because when we look at distant quasars, we see their light very slightly dimmed or bluer light slightly absorbed at specific wavelengths by traces of intergalactic gas. Space, even here, has an extremely tenuous weather. If an astronaut were here, far beyond any galaxy, floating in suit, what would they physically feel? Essentially nothing. No air, of course. No sense of wind or pressure or temperature in the usual sense. The temperature of space here, defined by the cosmic background radiation, is about 3 degrees above absolute zero, roughly 270 degrees centigrade. Any object left alone out here would eventually cool to that temperature by radiating its heat away. In practice, an astronaut in a suit, shielded from sunlight, would radiate away body heat and slowly cool, but would likely die from lack of oxygen long before reaching the ambient temperature. The concept of hot or cold becomes tricky when there is almost no matter to measure it. The medium here can be simultaneously extremely hot in one sense. The few particles can be moving with lots of energy, yet cold in another. There are so few particles that they won't convey heat to you. It's correct to say the effective temperature of the void is just under 3 K, set by that bath of leftover Big Bang light that fills the cosmos uniformly. If you had microwave eyes, you'd see the whole sky aglow with that faint 3 K afterglow. It's almost uniform in every direction, a gentle whisper of long-ago fire that has cooled over 13.8 billion years. The differences across the sky are minuscule, on the order of 1 part in 100,000. The void here is as cold and homogeneous as the universe gets naturally. Now reflect on how far we've come. We have left behind not only Earth and the Sun, but every star of our galaxy. The Milky Way now is just one object in the sky, a hazy oval of light behind us. Andromeda is another. The rest of the universe lies beyond, all around. If we look farther outward, beyond the local group, we see other galaxies, perhaps the Pinwheel, the Whirlpool, giant ellipticals in the Virgo cluster, tens of millions of light years away, each just a faint smudge, needing a telescope to discern structure. Many of those galaxies are grouped into clusters and superclusters, interconnected by filaments of dark matter and gas, and separated by giant voids with hardly any galaxies at all. We are at a vantage point where the cosmic web, the large-scale structure of the universe, can be contemplated as a whole, filaments and clusters and vast empty cells in between. We might find ourselves drifting near one of the largest cosmic voids. In such a location, the nearest galaxy might be tens of millions of light years away, just a tiny swirls of light in one region of the sky. The rest would be mostly black, dotted with faint galaxy images. It would be perhaps the loneliest location in terms of visible landmarks. In such emptiness, an unsettling thought arises. How would a human mind fare here for long? We are about to consider that as we turn inward for a moment, but before that, let's marvel at the panorama one last time. If we look back at our Milky Way from here, we see it in its full glory, a sideways-on spiral with a bright core and tenuous arms. We see its dusty disk obscuring some light, its central bulge glowing. We realize our entire solar system was nestled in one of those arms, so far inside that from there we could never get this view. We had to leave it to truly see it. Looking outward, we behold our local group's members scattered, and further out, we sense the pull of the Virgo cluster, the massive cluster of galaxies that is the center of our larger supercluster, which scientists have named Laniakea, meaning immense heaven in Hawaiian. Our galaxy and Andromeda and hundreds of others are flowing together toward that region, drawn by gravity, something we'll touch on when we discuss the great attractor shortly. For now, in this floating moment outside the galaxy, it's time to address a different pull, the tug on the human heart when faced with such infinite silence and isolation. We have been bold explorers, but we are also flesh and thought, and the psychological toll of deep space is a story of its own. Before continuing to the next grand cosmic structure, let's turn inward to reflect on how profound darkness and distance might affect a human mind and spirit. Alone in the abyss, the psychological toll of deep space. Let's step away from the physical marvels for a moment and consider ourselves tiny, sentient beings in this enormity. We have crossed unimaginable distances, surrounded by eternal night and silence. Now, contemplate the human experience of such an environment. What would it feel like to truly be out here, with no familiar sky, no ground beneath you, no nearby sun to mark the days or give you warmth? Even the most seasoned astronauts, who travel merely to the International Space Station or to the Moon, always had Earth glowing nearby, a bright oasis of life in the void, which gave them comfort and orientation. But push beyond. Say an astronaut on a mission to Mars faces a tiny distant Earth, a mere bluish dot, which can already induce a profound sense of isolation. Take it further. Imagine an explorer in a spacecraft, leaving the solar system entirely, watching the sun dwindle to a sharp point of light among others. That mental picture alone, the sun as just another star, has made many a science fiction story haunting, because it touches on our deep-seated need for connection and reference points. Now extend to our scenario. No sun at all, no Earth, no planets, just your ship and the universe. You are the only warm thing for trillions of kilometers. The nearest known anything is maybe a star so far away it's just a speck. This scenario is beyond any isolation a human has ever experienced. How does one cope? On Earth, we have cycles of day and night, weather, the rhythm of life, other living beings around. In deep space, there is no natural rhythm, except maybe the oscillations of your ship's systems or your own heartbeat. Time can blur. Eternal night can play tricks on your perception of time's passing. Without a sun rising and setting, an hour or a day becomes an abstraction you must impose artificially by clocks and routines. The psychological challenge would be immense. Loneliness and boredom could become overwhelming, even if one is surrounded by the wonder of the cosmos. There's a reason explorers throughout history often traveled in crews. Few venture completely alone for long periods, because isolation can weigh heavily on the human psyche. History offers glimpses. Adventurers in polar winters, submariners deep undersea, or test pilots on solo flights have reported distortions of time and mood swings in prolonged isolation and darkness. Centuries ago, Pascal, whom we quoted earlier, admitted that the infinite silent spaces terrified him. That fear is a deeply human response to confronting a vastness in which we seem so insignificant. An astronaut alone in intergalactic space might undergo phases of awe and inspiration, followed by waves of anxiety or even existential dread. One moment you might feel at one with the universe, a transcendent unity with this beautiful dark cosmos. The next moment, you might feel unbearably small and alone, like a child lost in a black desert that extends forever. Our traveler would have to find meaning and stability internally. They might cling to routines, exercise, maintenance, observations, to structure time. They might have photographs of home, recordings of voices or music to provide some emotional connection. Perhaps they'd have a communication link still active to mission control.
though with increasing delays as distance grows, until it becomes impractically long, and beyond our galaxy, essentially no communication with home would be possible due to distance and eventual lack of powerful enough transmitters. We can imagine the profound homesickness one might feel, seeing the Milky Way from outside, realizing all of humanity and history is contained in that faint glimmer, and you are out here, separate. The overview effect that astronauts feel, a cognitive shift when seeing Earth as a small, fragile ball in space, would be magnified to an extreme. Not only Earth, but the entire galaxy would be seen as one small thing among many. Our explorer might have an incredible intellectual understanding of unity. All people, all known life, are truly together on one tiny island, but also a sobering sense of cosmic solitude. There is so much emptiness, and I am out here in it. Will future explorers venture this far, and what will they feel? Perhaps by then, technology, like advanced AI companions or virtual reality simulations of Earth environments, will help. But nothing can change the reality outside the hull. Silent, star-speckled darkness in all directions. Interestingly, some humans might adapt and even thrive in such an environment. There can be a peace in solitude, the absence of noise, of crowds, of conflict. A person might find a monastic calm to contemplate existence. They could spend hours stargazing with eyes or instruments, meditating on the nature of things, writing poetry about the stars. The awe can be a powerful salve to fear. Knowing what we know about the universe's workings could also be comforting. You're alone, but you're not lost. You understand where you are and what that darkness is. Not demons or chaos, but physical space with laws and phenomena you've prepared for. In that sense, knowledge is a companion. However, without careful mental discipline, the void could erode one's sanity. Sensory deprivation can lead to hallucinations. The brain might start creating voices or apparitions to fill the void. A lonely traveler might find themselves talking to imagined friends or sensing presences that aren't there as a way to cope. In literature and film, many isolated spacefarers converse with an AI or even an anthropomorphized ship's computer to meet their social needs. Perhaps one would talk to the stars as if they were old companions. Hello, Sirius. Bright again tonight I see. All of this underlines a truth. While the physical challenges of deep space are enormous, so are the psychological ones. On Earth, even in the quietest desert, there are distant sounds. There is a horizon. There are signs of life or weather. In deep space, none of that, only what you bring. Yet the human spirit is adaptable. If one approaches the void not with fear, but with reverence and curiosity, it might become not a prison, but a vast cathedral. Instead of feeling insignificant, one could flip the perspective. Yes, we are small, but we are here, a part of this grand universe, able to witness it. The silence isn't threatening. It's the backdrop for our own thoughts and for the subtle music of the spheres, like those gravitational waves or plasma hums we mentioned, which can be converted to sound if we choose. In this journey we're on, of course, we are together in imagination, you, the listener, and I, the narrator, accompanied by the knowledge inherited from generations. That alone is a comfort. We carry our civilization's collective experience with us, even into the void. Let's imagine our traveler finds a kind of equilibrium. They establish a routine, they record their observations, they find joy in small things, the taste of a recycled cup of tea, the act of reading a favorite novel by lamplight, the challenge of capturing a beautiful image of a distant galaxy with their ship's telescope. The mind can make a home even in the darkest places by finding purpose and beauty. Centuries hence, if humans, or our AI emissaries, go on interstellar or intergalactic voyages, they will carry not just equipment, but also art, memory, and philosophy to help them endure.
Perhaps they will also have the comfort of communication with others making similar journeys. A community of the void, connected by faint signals or quantum communications, making the emptiness a little less lonely. As for us, on this imaginary voyage, we thankfully are not truly alone. We have the ability to return home in thought whenever we wish. And we have each other in sharing this narrative. Thus far, our journey has taken us from Earth's vicinity to intergalactic space. We confronted isolation and found meaning in it. Now, we will resume our exploration of outer physical realities, specifically some of the most extreme concentrations of mass and the grand flows of galaxies themselves. Armed with both scientific insight and a mindful heart, we turn now to one of the universe's most formidable and enigmatic denizens, the black hole. And after that, we'll look at the great attractor, a gravitational mystery on the scale of superclusters, before contemplating the fate of the universe and finally our place in it all. Take a deep breath. Our ship's life support has plenty of air. The journey continues, ever deeper into the dark, now toward one of the darkest destinations possible. The black hole, a well of darkness. From the quiet emptiness of intergalactic space, we set course for one of the most mind-bending destinations in the universe, a black hole. Specifically, let's journey to an isolated black hole drifting far from any galaxy, a rogue black hole, perhaps the remnant of a star that was flung out of its galaxy, or the merger remnant of two black holes that got a gravitational kick. This way, we can encounter it in relative solitude, without the blinding chaos of infalling matter, and appreciate the pure darkness of its nature. As we approach the coordinates, initially, there is nothing to see. Black holes, by their very nature, emit no light of their own, unless actively feeding on matter, which produces light outside the horizon. Our first hint that we're closing in is gravitational. Our ship's trajectory starts to deviate as if pulled by an invisible mass. Also, the pattern of background stars ahead of us begins to distort. Stars seem to stretch into arcs or smears, as if we're looking through a fisheye lens. This is gravitational lensing again, but cranked to maximum. The black hole's intense gravity is bending the light of background stars into rings and arcs as we move into the strong field region. We still haven't seen the black hole itself, but we see its shadow, a round patch of apparent emptiness where it blots out background light completely. Around that patch, depending on our angle, we might observe a thin photon ring, light from background stars that skim just around the hole and get bent into a circular path toward our eyes, making a faint ring of light outlining the darkness. We draw closer, cautiously. We won't cross the critical boundary known as the event horizon, as that is a one-way trip. Up ahead lies the ultimate dark region, the black hole's event horizon, a spherical surface within which no event can affect the outside universe. It's not a physical surface, but a boundary in space. Cross it, and even light cannot escape. To our eyes, it appears as a pitch-black sphere silhouetted against whatever starlight is behind it. In this case, since we are in intergalactic space, the backdrop is the distant tapestry of galaxies and maybe the glow of the Milky Way far behind. The black hole hides whatever falls behind that sphere from us, creating a black silhouette in the star field. Approaching fairly near but not too near, we begin to notice other relativistic effects. Time for us, relative to a distant observer, would slow noticeably. If we had a clock transmitting its tick rate to a faraway station, that station would see our clock ticks getting slower and slower as we neared the hole. Also, light from our ship to an outside observer would shift to redder wavelengths and dim, a process known as gravitational redshift. We, on board, might not feel anything unusual locally. Gravity is gravity, and as long as tidal forces aren't extreme, we could orbit a black hole much like we'd orbit any massive object, with the difference that we must keep a safe distance to avoid being captured irrevocably. Let's say this black hole is about 10 times the mass of our Sun, a typical stellar remnant black hole.
Its horizon radius would be roughly 30 kilometers. That's a tiny radius compared to cosmic scales, meaning we can get fairly close within a few hundred kilometers and still be outside it. At that distance, the tidal forces, difference in gravity's pull between our ship's front and back, would be noticeable but not yet lethal. Closer in, they'd become very strong, potentially stretching objects, the infamous spaghettification. But we won't venture that close. Instead, we settle into a safe orbit, perhaps a few hundred kilometers out, engines firing gently to hold position.
From here, the view is fantastically strange. Off to one side, we might see the normal star field of the universe. Off to the other, where the black hole is, we see that star field warped into a ring around a circular patch of pure black. If we look around the black hole, i.e., turn our camera as we orbit, we notice something mind-bending. We can see multiple images of the same background star at different positions. Light that passed on one side of the hole, or the other, reaches us from both sides. So a single distant galaxy might appear as two smears opposite each other around the hole. Some light may even be bent full circle. If we look toward the black hole's edge, we might catch a faint, delayed image of the very sky behind us, light that went around the hole and came back. In essence, the black hole's gravity is acting like an extreme lens and mirror, showing us around corners in space. There is almost no radiation here. We chose an isolated, quiet black hole. If it had nearby matter falling in, that matter would form a swirling accretion disk that would heat up and blaze with X-rays and visible light, potentially outshining whole galaxies. Indeed, the brightest persistent objects known, quasars, are accreting supermassive black holes in galactic centers, so black holes can paradoxically be sources of incredible light if there's fuel. But our black hole has no such meal at the moment, which allows us to appreciate the black hole itself. We're witnessing one of the darkest phenomena in nature, in essentially its pure form. It's worth noting that in 2019, scientists produced the first actual image of a black hole's immediate vicinity, the one in galaxy M87, using radio telescopes. They saw a ring of emission surrounding the silhouette of the horizon, matching predictions of general relativity. In our case, we are getting a much closer, clearer view with our own eyes. It affirms what theory and that image told us. Black holes really do cast a shadow on the universe, a nearly perfect sphere of darkness. The environment just outside the event horizon is extreme. Space and time exchange roles in a sense. Falling toward the horizon is as unavoidable once inside as moving forward in time. If we were to send a probe toward the horizon, we'd see it approach that invisible boundary and appear to slow down, redshift, and fade, asymptotically freezing near the edge from our view. It would never quite disappear, just become increasingly dim and red until it's effectively gone. From the probe's own perspective, it would actually cross the horizon after a finite time and head to inevitable destruction at the central singularity, where density and curvature become infinite and our physics breaks down. But we, outside, are forever denied seeing anything actually enter. A kind of cosmic censorship that keeps the interior hidden. Hovering near a black hole like this, one might feel a mixture of fear and fascination. On one hand, this black pit represents oblivion, a one-way exit from our universe. On the other hand, it's a triumph of human understanding that we can predict and even visit, in theory, such a thing. We understand its radius, its mass, its effects. We know, for example, that over an incredibly long time, many orders of magnitude longer than the current age of the universe, even this black hole will evaporate via Hawking radiation, a quantum effect causing it to emit a faint glow and slowly lose mass. But that is trillions upon trillions of years in the future. At present, the hole's Hawking glow is negligible, on the order of nanokelvins, utterly undetectable. So, to us, it appears truly black. Let's consider a thought. Not all black holes are small. There are black holes millions or billions of times the Sun's mass at galactic centers, with horizons as large as the solar system. If we were near one of those, the tidal forces at the horizon could be mild. They grow weaker relative to your size for bigger holes, so you could actually cross the horizon without spaghettifying immediately, only to meet your end later near the singularity. In our smaller black hole case, crossing the horizon would rip us apart quickly due to intense tidal forces. In either case, crossing is a no-return journey. For our narrative, we wisely keep a safe distance. We marvel at how this black hole, a place of maximal darkness, still announces its presence through gravity's influence. It reminds us that even where light cannot exist, the shape of space-time itself betrays the hidden mass. After orbiting a few times and collecting data, imagine capturing close-up images of the photon ring, measuring gravitational redshift of light signals, perhaps even dropping a clock in and watching its signals fade. Experiments that confirm again Einstein's predictions. We prepare to leave. We fire our engines and gradually spiral away from the black hole. The distorted starfield slowly undistorts. The pinched ring of light around the hole smears and then breaks apart into normal star images as we retreat. The region of pitch black shrinks, and then suddenly the black hole becomes essentially invisible again against space, only detectable by the way background stars realign to their undistorted positions. We leave this well of darkness behind. It will continue drifting, perhaps eventually merging with another black hole, or gobbling some stray gas or star it encounters in eons hence. For now, it's a silent relic of a massive star's death, carrying a piece of the universe's mass in secret. Having confronted a black hole, arguably the darkest physical entity possible, we now turn to a different kind of darkness, one on a much larger scale. This isn't a single object, but rather a mysterious region toward which many galaxies, including ours, seem to be drifting. An expansive gravitational anomaly known as the Great Attractor. It's not an object like a black hole, not a single one anyway, but it represents a concentration of mass in the depths of intergalactic space that is largely unseen. It is in effect a dark hub drawing us and our galactic neighbors in. Let's set course toward the coordinates of the Great Attractor, a journey that will take us across tens of millions of light years and into the realm of large-scale structure and cosmic flow. The Great Attractor, the mysterious pull in the cosmic dark. No matter where we drift in our local supercluster, we notice something. Our galaxy, and many around us, are moving in a common direction, as if being gently pulled by the gravity of something massive ahead. This observation is at the heart of the Great Attractor mystery. In the late 1970s and 1980s, astronomers mapping the velocities of galaxies, after subtracting the general expansion of the universe, found a residual motion. The whole local group, Milky Way, Andromeda, and others, and even the Virgo cluster and other nearby clusters, appeared to be streaming toward a patch of sky in the constellation Centaurus. They couldn't see much in that direction. Unfortunately, the line of sight lies through the dense plain of our own Milky Way, where interstellar dust obscures distant galaxies. They poetically called this obstructing zone the zone of avoidance. Yet something beyond that galactic plane seemed to be tugging on us all, causing velocities on the order of several hundred kilometers per second towards that region. They dubbed the unseen mass concentration the Great Attractor, half in jest, half in awe, because whatever it was, it had the mass of perhaps tens of thousands of galaxies. What have we learned since? Later surveys, including X-ray surveys that can peer through dust, found that there is a large collection of galaxy clusters in that region, notably the Norma cluster, a massive cluster of galaxies hidden behind the Milky Way's stars, not easily visible in ordinary light, but detectable in X-rays and partially in radio infrared. The combined mass of these clusters, plus their dark matter halos, accounts for a lot of the gravitational pull observed.
In effect, the Great Attractor is not a single object, but a kind of gravitational valley in which our local supercluster, Laniakea, is situated, and towards whose center, the Norma cluster region, many groups and clusters, including Virgo and our local group, are flowing. It's as if we're all slowly sliding down the gentle slope of a very large gravitational hill. We, with our ship capable of traversing millions of light years in a reasonable time, imagination knows no bounds, decide to head toward this Great Attractor region to see what's there. As we travel tens of millions of light years, the Milky Way recedes into the distance behind us, joining the local group's other galaxies as just faint blurs. We enter a part of space more crowded with galaxies as we near the Great Attractor's region. We might pass through the fringe of the Hydra Centaurus supercluster. Gradually, ahead, we see more galaxies clustering together. This is the Norma cluster, Abel 3627, very rich in galaxies. The space between galaxies here is still mostly dark, but punctuated frequently by fuzzy ellipticals and spirals drifting relatively close to each other. This cluster is enveloped in a huge cloud of hot gas, which we know from X-ray observations. Though we can't see X-rays with our eyes, if we had X-ray vision, the cluster would appear as a ball of faintly glowing plasma at tens of millions of degrees, filling the cluster and outweighing all the stars in the galaxies. And that gas itself sits in an even larger ball of dark matter that we cannot see at all except by its gravitational effect. So, in approaching the Great Attractor, we find that it's not a single thing like a black hole or massive planet. It's a convergence zone. Our entire region of the universe is in the process of slowly coalescing here. Over billions of years, our local group and others might merge into this cluster's outskirts, unless the accelerating expansion halts that. More on that soon. Standing at this location, say, on the outskirts of the Norma cluster, what do we observe? The night sky would be rich with galaxies. It would be like being near the center of a city, with city lights in every direction. Some galaxies in the cluster might be close enough together that their mutual light gives a faint illumination to intergalactic space, though extremely faint, still far, far darker than a starlit night on Earth. We would see giant elliptical galaxies bloated with stars, and perhaps active galaxies with jets from central black holes. This is a crowded dark. Space is still dark, but filled with more objects than we've seen since leaving the Milky Way. However, when we look out beyond this region, we notice something else. Even this Great Attractor region is not the end of the line. In fact, now astronomers realize that this area is being pulled towards an even larger concentration of mass farther away, known as the Shapley supercluster, a titanic collection of clusters, the most massive in our part of the universe, about 650 million light-years away. The Great Attractor was like a local valley, but Shapley is a deeper valley beyond, and even the Norma cluster and Great Attractor itself are being pulled in that direction. In truth, gravity's web extends hierarchically. Our cluster falls into a larger cluster complex, which may fall into a supercluster complex, and so on. But eventually, the accelerating expansion of the universe will likely stop these flows from carrying things too far. Our ship doesn't attempt to travel to Shapley. That's hundreds of millions of light years. We'll content ourselves with understanding it from here. We might, however, observe the motion of galaxies. We'd see the Norma cluster's galaxies engaged in a slow dance, some moving toward a common center. If we had the ability to mark positions and come back in a billion years, imagine leaving boys in space and returning much later. We'd see progress, galaxies noticeably closer together, structures merged. The Great Attractor moniker, while a bit hyperbolic, gave a face to the idea that even in the darkness, there are currents. The universe has internal motions on huge scales, and we are part of one. It's humbling. Our Milky Way is racing at hundreds of kilometers per second due to these currents, yet here on Earth, we never noticed until we built instruments to measure Doppler shifts of distant galaxies. We're like a small boat drifting on a vast, slow-moving ocean current. Only by looking at the shoreline, distant quasars, can we tell we're moving. Let's take stock of where we are. We set out from Earth, left our solar system, passed through interstellar space, out of the galaxy, into intergalactic space, encountered a rogue planet, orbited a black hole, and now visited the heart of a massive cluster at the Great Attractor. We have traversed an enormous range of scales and phenomena. The darkness has taken many forms, from the simple absence of sunlight in interplanetary space, to the near-perfect vacuum between galaxies, to the ultimate darkness of a black hole's interior. We found that darkness is not uniform. Sometimes it's gentle and empty, other times it's dynamic and hiding immense forces. Our journey outward, in space, is nearly at its limit. The next step out would be to encompass the view of the entire observable universe, essentially to consider the cosmos as a whole. We can't physically travel outside our universe's observable bounds, but we can conceptually zoom out and talk about edges we cannot cross and the ultimate horizons in time and space. Before we do that, however, we have one more realm to explore, not spatial now, but temporal, the future. For there is a deep, dark space that awaits even if we never leave home, the far future of the universe, when starlight itself might cease. It's time to talk about light and time on the grandest scale, the cosmic horizon of what we can see, and the final fate of the silent vacuum itself. The eternal night, the destiny of an expanding universe. We have journeyed outward through space. Now let us journey forward through time. The subject is deep, dark space in the context of the far future. The fate of stars, galaxies, and the very fabric of the cosmos as expansion and entropy play out. This will be a speculative voyage, grounded in our best science, carrying us trillions upon trillions of years ahead to an era where darkness and emptiness may reign supreme. Right now, we live in what could be called the stelliferous era, the age of stars. Galaxies sparkle with billions of stars. New stars are still being born from gas clouds, and the night sky, from any planet, has points of starlight. But stars are not eternal. The larger ones burn out quickly, in a few million to a billion years. Sun-like stars live around 10 billion years. The smallest red dwarfs, however, sip their fuel so slowly they can last trillions of years, far longer than the universe's current age, which is almost 14 billion years. So, fast forward far beyond our current time. First, the massive bright stars will die off. We've already seen many of those go. In fact, in our Milky Way today, most supergiants are young and will explode within a few million years. In a few billion years, even sun-like stars, including our sun, will be ending their lives, swelling into red giants, then shedding into white dwarfs. But tiny red dwarfs will continue to burn their dim fires for a very long time. Imagine the universe at, say, 100 billion years from now, almost 10 times its current age. By then, most galaxies beyond our local group will have swept out of our observable range due to the accelerated expansion of space. The universe's expansion is carrying them away faster and faster. Future astronomers in our galaxy, or its merged remnant as the Milky Way is likely to merge with Andromeda long before that, might see an empty sky beyond their galaxy. No external galaxies visible because they've receded beyond the cosmic horizon. Only the galaxies of our local supercluster, now likely merged into one giant assemblage, would remain visible. The universe, from their perspective, would look static and lonely, a single island universe surrounded by infinite darkness. As time marches on, star formation in our giant merged galaxy will slow and eventually stop. The interstellar gas gets used up or locked in stellar remnants. The lights in the sky begin to go out one by one. In a few trillion years, the last new star will have formed. After that, it's a slow dusk on the universe. The existing stars, one by one, exhaust their fuel. The bright era of stars gives way to the degenerate era, dominated not by shining stars, but by stellar remnants, white dwarfs, cooling embers of sun-like stars, neutron stars, ultra-dense corpses of massive stars, and black holes. Also, planets that once orbited stars now find themselves wandering or clinging to cooling white dwarfs. The universe still has plenty of mass and objects, but almost none emit visible light. A white dwarf will glow from residual heat for many billions of years, gradually fading to become a black dwarf, a cold, dark sphere. Neutron stars might remain hot with stored heat for a long time too, but eventually they too cool, though neutron stars are so opaque and small that they become essentially invisible except perhaps via faint radio emissions, or if they were pulsars, but even pulsars slow down.
At this point, the universe, perhaps tens of trillions of years from now, is lit mainly by the afterglow of white dwarfs turning to black dwarfs, and occasional accretion flares if two objects interact or collide. Starlight as we know it is essentially over. Future inhabitants, if any, might live on warm planets orbiting faint white or black dwarfs, eking out energy as best they can. Eventually, even those fade.
It is a melancholy picture, darkness settling over the cosmos, like a grand theatre show ending and the lights of the stage gradually dimming until only the emergency exit sign, perhaps the occasional Hawking radiation flicker or proton decay flash, remains.
As we push further forward in time, more exotic processes become important. If protons, the building blocks of atoms, are unstable, some theories suggest they might decay after an extremely long time, 10-30 years. Then over truly vast spans such as 10-100 years, even matter as such might disintegrate into radiation and elementary particles. If protons are stable, matter persists as iron lumps and such indefinitely. Regardless, gravitational dynamics continue. Stars and remnants will shuffle around, some getting ejected from galaxies, others merging into the central black hole. Ultimately, one expects a large fraction of mass ends up in black holes, since many stars will fall into them or merge to form them. So, in the far, far future, black holes might be the last bastions of mass. They too are not immortal. Through Hawking radiation, black holes slowly evaporate, a process unbelievably slow for big holes. A stellar mass black hole might take 10⁻⁶7 years to evaporate, a 1 with 67 zeros. Supermassive ones take far longer. The one in our galaxy would take around 10⁻⁹ years. But given enough time, even they will evaporate.
So imagine, after hundreds of trillions of years, the last black dwarf star fades to darkness. After quintillions more, the last stellar black hole pops out of existence in a final burst of Hawking evaporation. What remains then? A thin gas of fundamental particles, electrons, positrons, neutrinos, photons, etc., at extremely low energies, sparsely scattered across ever-expanding space. This is the projected heat death of the universe, a state of maximum entropy where all energy is evenly spread and no gradients exist to do work. The temperature everywhere is effectively at the background minimum, which itself gets lower as expansion stretches the remaining photons to longer and longer wavelengths, approaching absolute zero from above. It is an eternal night so complete that, to any conceivable observer, nothing happens and nothing can be done. The cosmos has gone to sleep. Of course, this assumes our current understanding. Dark energy remains a constant vacuum energy, leading to accelerated expansion forever, and no new physics intervenes. There are alternative possibilities, e.g., a big rip, in which dark energy's effect grows without bound and shreds even atoms in the far future. Very speculative, and current data suggests it won't happen. Or a cyclical universe, where after eons, a new Big Bang might be triggered. Also speculative without evidence as of now. Or the small but mind-bending chance of a vacuum decay, where what we call empty space is actually in a metastable state. and could quantum tunnel to a lower energy state, creating a bubble of true vacuum that expands at nearly light speed and essentially destroys the universe as we know it. Again, speculative, but if it were possible, it could, in principle, happen at any time without warning. Cheery thought. There's also the concept of Boltzmann brains, that given enough time in a heat-dead universe, random fluctuations could produce a self-aware entity, a brain, out of the chaos, albeit fleetingly, due to sheer chance. But these are deeply theoretical musings, in the absence of anyone to observe them. In the scenario that most fits current evidence, eternal accelerated expansion, our universe ends not with a bang, but with a whimper, or rather, an endless sigh of dispersing energy. Let's pause and think what that means for meaning. It's a somber vision. All the brilliance and structure the cosmos developed, stars, galaxies, life, maybe intelligence, all eventually dissipates into nearly nothing. The legacy of the universe becomes essentially a very cold, dilute soup of particles and photons, expanding into an ever vaster emptiness. One can find this depressing, the ultimate futility of all structures. Or one can find it peaceful. The universe returns to a simple, quiet state after a tumultuous youth and middle age full of drama. In this far future, even black holes, those engines of destruction, have evaporated into gentle Hawking radiation. The darkness is truly and literally everywhere. If some incredibly advanced beings wanted to postpone this darkness, they'd have to find ways to gather energy or create new ordered pockets. But thermodynamics suggests they can't stave it off indefinitely. Eventually, usable energy runs out. As our journey to the future concludes, we imagine ourselves floating in that eternal night. We are now trillions upon trillions of years from our present time. The Milky Way, the great attractor, all of it is gone or quiet. Perhaps we see nothing with our eyes, no stars, not even the faint glow of a galaxy cluster. Only perhaps a thin haze if we amplify certain wavelengths, the dying embers of creation. It is an empty stage, but we recall the vivid scenes that played out on that stage in earlier eras. We, our distant descendants or thought experiments, carry the memory of a lively cosmos into this twilight. Perhaps we, or our far future proxies, could still find meaning as memory keepers, storytellers of the long-ago age of starlight. And here's a thought. Perhaps this isn't truly the end. Some cosmologists speculate that given infinite time, quantum fluctuations might eventually create new Big Bangs or new ordered regions, a kind of rebirth from the void. These ideas are speculative and often untestable, but who knows? The ultimate end might be a new beginning in ways we can't foresee, like the formation of a new universe in a bubble of the old. If the multiverse concept is true, perhaps new universes are being born elsewhere, even as ours dies. So the grand story never truly ends, but continues in other arenas. Be that as it may, from our perspective within our universe, heat death is as close to an eternity of darkness as we can imagine. Now gently, we return our attention to the present journey. We have seen the end of all things, scientifically speaking, and with it, the triumph of darkness. It leaves us with a profound appreciation for the time we live in, when the cosmos is still young and full of light and wonder. We also realize something beautiful. Even as the universe heads toward darkness, we are here now, evolved in time to witness the pageant of galaxies and to understand what we're seeing. If the universe must go dark, at least it birthed minds that could comprehend and feel awe at its glory. We are, in a sense, the universe's way of appreciating its own ephemeral beauty. On that note, let's step back from the future and come back to our place in the dark. We've traversed space and time beyond all ordinary limits. It's time to reflect on what this means for us, floating on a small planet in the habitable zone of an ordinary star, a star that will one day die as well. With all this knowledge of the abyss, How do we feel about our fragile oasis of life and light? Epilogue: the meaning of nothing, finding light in the dark. We end our journey much as it began, in silence and darkness. But now the darkness is no longer merely an absence. It is rich with history, structure, and meaning we've layered onto it. We set out to explore deep, dark space, the vast, invisible, silent regions beyond planets, stars, and galaxies, and we found that each void held its own lessons. We learned that what seems empty is often full of invisible connections, fields, forces, and perhaps flickers of quantum potential. We saw that darkness frames light. Without the enormous gulf of dark space, the stars would not stand out, nor have room to shine or orbit. The void is what allows structure to exist, giving contrast and space for things to move and evolve. We also confronted the ultimate dark, the eventual night that may fall over the cosmos itself. Rather than despair, this knowledge can instill a kind of poignant appreciation. We live in the springtime of the universe, when stars still burn and galaxies swim in a sea of light. It is by cosmic standards a fleeting era. How precious then is a sunrise, a burst of starlight, the sparkle of a nebula? These commonplace wonders are, on the grand timeline, temporary gifts. Standing here on our metaphorical observation deck at the end of our travels, let's imagine looking back at our home one more time. Our planet Earth, that pale blue dot, suspended in a sunbeam, to quote Carl Sagan, is uniquely blessed with the light and warmth of a nearby star. Against the cold backdrop of infinite space, it is a haven of life. Recognizing this fills us with both humility and reverence. As Sagan noted, on that mote of dust is everyone and everything we care about. When set against the cosmic dark, that small bright world is all the more special. It underscores our responsibility to cherish and protect our island of light. At the same time, knowing the vastness beyond, we might feel less frightened by it and more connected. We are made of atoms forged in ancient starfire, scattered through interstellar space and gathered by gravity into living beings. Thus, even the darkness between the stars is kin to us, for it carries the ashes of dead stars that became the seeds of life. We are children of both the light and the dark. And consider, in all the silent dark we traversed, the one thing that persisted was our own consciousness observing it. In the ultimate heat-death scenario, if there were no observers, the silence would be truly absolute. But as long as there's someone or something to marvel, to understand, to know the universe, then the dark has meaning. In a way, through us, the universe is no longer silent. We give it a voice. We've done so in this very journey by narrating the secrets of space. We, tiny, temporary beings, have used our minds to illuminate billions of years and billions of light years, to unveil the hidden harmonies of the cosmos. The French philosopher Pascal, gazing at the night sky, shuddered at the eternal silence of these infinite spaces. Yes, the cosmic void can seem unbearably indifferent, but perhaps we need not be terrified if we carry our own flame of understanding. Where Pascal felt dread, we can feel a solemn awe. The darkness is vast and indifferent, but we are not indifferent. We care, we wonder, we dream, and so we supply the cosmos with meaning. Throughout our expedition, whenever we encountered darkness, we found something to learn or admire. The empty interstellar expanses taught us about perseverance and scale. The rogue planet in darkness showed resilience. The black hole silhouette revealed nature's sublime extremes. The great attractor's hidden pull taught us about unseen influences, and the far future's gloom casts the present in a warm, golden light of appreciation. In the end, deep, dark space is not empty to us. It's full of context for our existence. It is the canvas on which the stars paint their light. It is the womb from which galaxies were born. Recall that in the beginning, the universe was dark until the first stars ignited. It is the quiet stage, that allows the play of cosmic history to unfold. And when the play is over, it is the gentle night that falls, perhaps awaiting some new dawn beyond our knowing. Our journey comes to a close, back on the familiar shores of Earth. Step outside on a clear night and look up. The sky may appear as a dark dome with scattered stars, but now you carry within you the stories hidden in that darkness. The silence up there is not frightening. It is profound. You might even feel a sense of companionship with the dark. It has been with us from the beginning and will be with the universe at the end, a constant backdrop to all of existence. As you gaze at the stars, remember that the very photons hitting your eyes may have traversed light years of dark space to get here. Think of what they witnessed, perhaps passing rogue planets, or skimming a black hole, or simply traveling for ages alone. And now, at the end of their long journey, those particles of light trigger an awareness in your mind. In that moment, you are the universe witnessing itself, the darkness delivering messages to a conscious spark. In the quiet after this narration ends, we are left with a feeling, difficult to name, a mixture of wonder, humility, and connectedness. The deep, dark space that seemed so forbidding at first has revealed its treasures to us. It has also reflected us back at ourselves, showing how precious the fragile light of life is against the vast dark. Our voyage through the emptiness has thus been, in truth, a journey inward as much as outward. We set out to find what lies in the dark. We return with a clearer sense of who we are and how we fit into this beautiful, immense, and silently eloquent universe.